you observe any of those females doing with respect to Mr. O'Keefe when you first got there?
That group seemed to be agitated. It was a scene of heightened emotions. As I stated, when I stepped out of the ambulance, I could hear screaming, I could hear people yelling, and it seemed just to be that group was just quite agitated.
Now, at some point, you are able to get him on the scoop stretcher and then over to the ambulance, correct?
Correct.
And when you get to the ambulance, what, if anything, did you note as far as what, if any, difference was there in the lighting in the back of the ambulance versus on the front lawn?
The lighting was significantly better. All of our ambulances have fluorescent lighting in the ceiling of the ambulance, so those were on, and we were able to see that there was some more injuries once we were able to get him out of his winter clothing.
And so, to that point, when you sort of first get into the back of the ambulance, what is sort of the protocol? What is it that each of you are sort of doing with respect to patient care at that?
So the biggest priority is continuous high quality CPR. And that is the biggest thing with any cardiac arrest is uninterruption of compressions. So when we got him into the back of the ambulance, we continued CPR throughout. So while multiple people were performing CPR and eventually a mechanical CPR device was applied, those compressions were uninterrupted and others were removing clothing, I honestly couldn't tell you the number of articles of clothing, but I believe a winter jacket and a sweatshirt were removed. And then eventually he was, all the clothing was removed, and that's protocol for any cardiac arrest or any traumatic injury is usually all clothing is removed so we can have unfettered access to the individual to see if there are any other injuries.
And why is that the protocol, sir?
You mentioned earlier, sir, that there is tunnel vision. The absence of clothing kind of helps to remove that so you can see everything. You can assess everything.
And you mentioned sort of a mechanical means of CPR. Is there a specific device that's used for that?
Yes, we use a Lucas device manufactured by Stryker, and for lack of a better term, it's basically just a plunger that does CPR. It frees up a set of hands for us, and that can provide CPR uninterrupted as long as the batteries last.
Now, at the time that you get him Mr. O'Keefe into the back of the ambulance and you removing some of the clothing, what, if anything, did you note at that time or at any subsequent time in regard to footwear?
To be candid, I wasn't really looking at the footwear. I believe it was brought to my attention when we eventually transferred patient care at Good Samaritan Medical Center that the individual was missing a shoe. However, that wasn't my primary focus at the time.
And the items of clothing that were removed from within the ambulance, eventually when you transfer that patient care to the hospital, what, if anything, happens with that?
In terms of the chain of custody of the clothing, that is typically brought in either with the individual or after, and that is usually deposited on the floor of the room where that patient is, and then the hospital takes custody of it. Occasionally we'll put it in bags. However, I could not speak to where that clothing went on this case.
But fair to say whatever clothing was taken off in the ambulance left the ambulance at some point?
Correct.
And went to the hospital, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, when you have Mr. O'Keefe in the back of the ambulance and the lighting is better, what, if anything, did you observe following sort of the removal of the clothing as far as what, if any, injuries did you observe to Mr. O'Keefe in that sense?
He was noted to have, and I was right at the head, he was noted to have a hematoma on the right side of his face, just above his eye on his forehead. and there was some scratches on the right arm, right, the upper arm.
And use the term as far as a hematoma. Could you explain what you understand that term to me?
Lack of a better term is just an egg. He had a pretty good egg on his head.
And as far as anything beyond that, did you observe anything or note anything beyond the egg on the head and scratches on the right arm?
As we got further down our treatment modality, we went to place an advanced airway. It was noted to have some blood, some mucus, and some bile in the back of his airway that was then suctioned out before we placed our endotracheal tube.
And what is an endotracheal tube?
So an endotracheal tube is basically, it's just a plastic tube that is passed through the mouth into the trachea through the vocal cords. It's a definitive airway, if you will. It isolates the trachea so you can better ventilate your patient, and you don't have to worry about any air getting into the stomach, any gastric insufflation. And that is the gold standard for cardiac arrest, is a properly placed endotracheal tube.
You mentioned there were some substances that were suctioned from his airway. Is that correct? Correct. Okay. What were they again? I'm sorry.
I believe it was blood, bile, and mucus.
And do you have any idea how much of that was suctioned?
I couldn't give you an exact number, but it was enough that we needed to set up a suction system to remove it before we intubated.
Just turning briefly again to the arm. These were injuries that you observed on his right arm. Is that correct?
Correct.
What, if any, injuries did you observe on his left arm?
I don't believe I saw any, to my knowledge.
And as far as your memory, as far as his right arm, how far did it sort of extend, and where was it located? Sort of upper arm, lower arm, both, or where was it?
I believe it was just below his shoulder. They ran, I would say, probably 3 or 4 inches from, I would say, about the shoulder right down to maybe 2 inches above the elbow.
And as far as Mr. O'Keefe's nose, what, if any, observations did you make of that?
Initially, it was noted to be very cold. The individual was cold all around to the touch, but his nose was also quite cold, quite white, just because he had been in the elements for a little while. There appeared to be a little bit of blood on his nose as well. Yeah.
And through your training experience, are you familiar with a term or a device known as an OPA?
Correct. Yes.
Can you explain to the jury sort of what OPA stands for, and what is that device? What does it do?
So an OPA, or oral pharyngeal airway, is basically a small plastic device that is curved. And when inserted into the mouth, all it does is it prevents the tongue from falling backwards into the airway and occluding the airway. It's relatively simple, but it's very effective in keeping an airway open.
Just turning back for one moment to the injuries that you observed on Mr. O'Keefe's right arm, were those injuries that were actively bleeding at the time that you observed them?
No.
What, if anything, did you observe as to that in reference to those injuries on the arm?
Those injuries seem to have been congealed. In my opinion, it looked like they had been cold, which could have aided in the clotting of those injuries. But when we observed them, they were not bleeding.
And you mentioned a little bit about Mr. O'Keefe's nose. What, if any, observations did you make as far as any sort of digits, whether they be his hand, his feet, or something else?
So all of his digits on the upper extremities were noted to, they were very cold. They were immobile. They were very stiff. I'm presuming due to the exposure, because when we got him onto the ambulance, when we were removing clothing, it was noted that all of his digits were very stiff. They were immobile, and it caused a little bit of problems just trying to get clothing off of him, just because they were so stiff.
And taking you back outside of the ambulance just for a moment, when you're sort of initially there and you're doing your assessment, and the 3 females are in your general area, correct?
Correct.
And at some point, you or any of the other paramedics or EMTs on scene asked them any questions about what had happened or anything like that?
So as I was ventilating at the head, there was a small delay in just getting equipment, nothing significant, just enough time that as I was ventilating, I was able to ask, did anybody see anything? What happened? And there was one individual that replied several times, I hit him.
And did you know that individual at that time?
I did not.
Can you describe the individual that said that?
I would describe her as mid 40s, average build, average height. And the other two, very similar.
And with reference to that statement of I hit him, is that something that she said once or more than once or something?
It was several times.
And as far as the tone or demeanor, how loudly was this being said?
As previously stated, they seemed to be erratic. There was a lot going on in that scene. It did seem to be said over and over and at varying volumes. And then there was just a lot of everybody appeared to be quite flustered.
And the individual, one of the three females that said that, what, if any, observations did you make as to her face or anything?
The individual that said, I hit him, appeared to have some blood on her face, presumably for attempting CPR prior to our arrival.
And you say presumably attempting CPR. When you first arrived at Mr. O'Keefe, what, if anything, did you observe any of the females doing with reference to Mr. O'Keefe?
Mr. O'Keefe was not being touched by any individual when I first got to him. That whole group was kind of pacing around, lack of a better term, kind of running around in circles. But Mr. O'Keefe was not being, there was no interventions being done to Mr. O'Keefe when I got to him.
And to be clear, sort of when you're in the back, fast forwarding now to sort of in the back of the ambulance, you're, again, sort of focused on the respiratory in the head, correct?
Correct.
And who, if anyone else from your department, is in the back of the ambulance, and what, if anything, are they doing at that point?
So at that point, I had myself and Matt Kelly, EMT Kelly. He was kind of with me for the head. One of the, for lack of a better term, easier operations of a cardiac arrest is ventilation. So Matt Kelly was assisting me with ventilations, is just squeezing the BVM to provide ventilation. The lead paramedic for the cardiac arrest was Anthony Flamati. He was running everything else. He was running the application of the cardiac monitor. He was monitoring the status of medications being administered. He was assisted with that by Katie McLaughlin, Lieutenant Woodbury, and Firefighter Walsh.
And at some point, Firefighter Flamati, at this point that you're in the back of the ambulance, you don't have any sort of demographic information in regard to your patient, correct?
Correct.
So what, if anything, did Firefighter Flamati ask anybody else to do in regard to obtain?
I believe he asked Firefighter McLaughlin to exit the ambulance and gather some information from the bystanders in terms of name, date of birth, any significant medical history or medications, just so we could further treat the patient.
And to the best of your knowledge, Firefighter McLaughlin leaves the ambulance to do that. Is that correct?
Correct.
But you weren't present for any of that, correct?
No.
So there's some period of time in the back of the ambulance, and then the transport to Good Samaritan happens. Is that correct?
Correct.
Do you recall where different people from your department were in relation to that transport to the hospital?
So the transport in the back in the patient compartment was myself, Firefighter Kelly, and Firefighter Flamati, with Firefighter McLaughlin driving ambulance 1.
I have just one moment. Right?
Yes.
So When it comes to the report that that you were testifying about before, there was a report generated in regards to this. Is that correct?
Correct.
And who has the sort of duty and responsibility of compiling?
That would have been Anthony Flamati.
And have you seen firefighter Flamati's report in relation to this incident?
I have.
May I approach the witness, John?
Yes.
Sorry, Sean, your document actually just do that for me to look up when you finish.
All right.
Do you recognize that, sir?
I do.
And what do you recognize that?
This is what I believe to be the ENFERS report written by Captain Robery and the patient care report written by firefighter Flamati.
Thank you, sir. May I approach, John?
Yes.
I'm up to seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit, I believe.
It's already pre-marked, or you're moving to introduce it now? Is there an objection?
May have just one yellow.
Okay.
No objection.
Patient care report. And
All right, that will be marked, Madam Court Reporter, please.
And
thank you very much.
Doctor, if I could ask for the lights in the little. Ms. Gilman, if I could have what's been previously marked as exhibit number 9. Mr. Nuttall, just directing your attention up to the screen there and what's been previously marked as exhibit number 9. Do you recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
I do.
What do you recognize?
I believe that's B34 Fairview Road.
Is that a relatively fair and accurate portrayal of what it looked like around the time that you arrived there, absent sort of lighting conditions and things of that nature?
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have exhibit number 18. May I approach the witness, Sean?
Yes.
Sir, there should be, so basically that button on top there.
All right.
And Mr. Nuttall, if I could ask you, using that laser pointer before you, well, first let me ask, do you recognize what's up on the screen as exhibit 18?
Yes. Again, 34 Fairview Road.
And the area where you first observed Mr. O'Keefe supine on the lawn and the 3 females around him. Do you see that area in this photograph?
I do.
And if you could, using that laser pointer, just direct the jury's attention to where in this photograph you see that.
I'm so sorry. I would say right around this general area, right about here.
And lastly, Ms. Gilman, if I could have exhibit number 14. And again, sir, do you recognize what's up on the screen as exhibit number 14?
I do.
When do you recognize that?
That I believe to be is where we found Mr. O'Keefe.
And as far as the pooling of the blood that you observed around Mr. O'Keefe's head, do you observe that area within this photograph as well?
Yes.
You could, again, using that laser pointer, just direct the jury's attention to where in this photograph you observed that.
They were right around in this general area. From there.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Officer, we can have the lights back up. Your Honor, may I approach just to retrieve that? last
Yes.
I have no further questions for this witness at this time, ma'am.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Afternoon, firefighter Nuttall.
Sir, how are you?
You were coming up, I want to make sure I get the timing right. You were coming off of nearly a 24-hour shift when you got the call,
No, sir. I was reporting for duty that morning.
just starting the shift when you got the call. Understood. I want to ask one quick question that you mentioned just a couple of seconds ago under questioning by Mr. Lally. With regard to the clothing, the normal protocol for clothing that's removed from a patient,
Yes.
you said it's oftentimes just sort of discarded onto the floor.
In terms of in the ambulance or at the hospital?
Either one.
Yes.
Okay, both?
So typically, when we remove clothing in the back of the ambulance, it's generally done with trauma shears. So we will expose and then kind of fold over. That clothing is then usually left in place. We'll do a quick roll just to check the back of the patient, and then he's usually rolled back if there's nothing found, and it's typically left there. In terms of like big puffy jackets, if you cut a puffy jacket, it just makes quite the mess. So yeah, exactly. It's a disaster. So typically those bigger jackets are just removed, and that is when we removed that type of article of clothing, that's when we noticed that his hands were quite rigid.
So that's what happened in this case.
Correct.
You removed the big heavy jacket, discarded it, got it away from the body so you could better assess the injuries.
Correct.
And it was only then, after you removed this big heavy winter coat, that you could assess that his hands were stiff and cold.
We noted the hands, but it came more into light, if you will, when we removed that coat.
Got it. And you have as good a memory about that as you do the rest of the scene that morning.
In terms of removing the article of clothing?
Correct.
I did not remove any article of clothing. I was ventilating.
But you remember him having the big jacket on.
Correct.
Okay. And you remember that as well as you remember the other specifics of the incident.
Yes.
Okay. When responding to a scene, I want to dovetail on the same subject, but just come at it a little bit different way, if you indulge me. When responding to a scene, one of your jobs has to be to sort of immediately take note of and assess the situation of the patient that you're dealing with, correct? A motorcycle accident is going to be very different than a drowning.
Exactly.
Someone, in this case, exposed in a snowbank, you're going to deal with or assess and note the weather, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that yes?
Yes.
You're also going to note and assess the condition of the patient.
Correct.
As it pertains to the weather.
Yes.
So someone, for instance, that's in a snowbank naked,
mm-hmm.
no clothes on at all, is going to be a little bit different assessment than someone who's completely dressed for winter, correct?
The initial assessment with every patient is going to be automatically circulation, airway, breathing.
Understood.
We approached this individual the exact same way. Is automatically went directly to cardiac. Make sure.
I guess what I'm asking is your attention is focused on some of those details for sure.
Correct.
All right. And that's how you remember that big heavy coat that he was wearing, correct?
I remember he was appropriately dressed. Correct.
Okay. As a matter of fact, you testified to that in the grand jury that, quote unquote, he had a heavy coat on.
Yes.
Consistent with how you're testifying today. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. Your Honor, I'd like to mark 2 photographs as next in order. That have not yet been marked. I believe it would be 160.
It doesn't matter so much the number, but why don't you just show the prosecutor the photos?
161 and 162 in order. May I approach?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask you, first of all, whether you recognize what's depicted in those photos.
Honestly, sir, I couldn't recall the exact, but yeah.
You do recognize them?
Yes.
Does that appear to be what John O'Keefe is wearing when you found him?
I don't recall, sir, to be perfectly honest.
May I approach him?
Yes.
Do you recall this being part of, let me ask it a different way. Do you remember somebody cutting this off of John O'Keefe at the time?
I remember the clothing being removed.
Okay, but you don't remember this clothing?
I could say that he had clothing removed, but I couldn't tell you exactly what it was.
And you've just looked at these. This, what I'm holding in my hand, appears to be the front and back of a.
So don't hold it up to him from that distance where he said he doesn't recognize it. You can put it back in front of him. Don't hold it up for the jury, please.
May I?
Yes.
That appeared to be a thin cotton hoodie.
Yeah, that appears to be a thinner layer of clothing.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes.
Not a heavy coat. Is that fair?
Fair.
Not a winter jacket.
Fair.
Is it fair to say you had a lot on your mind when you were out at that scene, correct?
In terms of just the cut.
Saving a man's life.
Correct.
That's your credentials are impressive. You were there focused on one thing, and that is trying to make sure that a man did not die.
Correct.
Would you agree that that was your primary concern and your primary focus the entire time you were at the scene?
Correct.
You weren't necessarily worried about what other individuals were doing, correct?
No.
If I asked you right now off the top of your head, tell me exactly the number of law enforcement officers that were there at the scene, probably couldn't tell me, could you?
No.
If I asked you whether or not you remember every single civilian that was at the scene, probably couldn't tell me, correct?
Outside of the three?
Outside of the three,
Correct.
any other civilians?
Not that I noted.
Okay. Matter of fact, you can't even identify the three civilians other than generally middle-aged, 40s, Caucasian, female.
Correct.
You said all three of them sort of looked alike, right?
Without the only defining feature on one of the individuals was one of the individuals did have blood on their face.
So some of the specifics of that scene, you didn't pay special note to, correct?
No, we were focused on patient care.
Is it fair to say that, specifically as it pertains to what the victim was wearing, your memory might be a little faulty where that's concerned?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, nothing wrong with that. You were focused on something completely different.
Correct.
You did notice certain injuries on Mr. O'Keefe's person, correct?
Correct.
And you indicated on direct examination that once you got him into the back of the ambulance, you, as you put it, you had a quote unquote much better picture of what you were dealing with. Is that right?
Correct.
You testified at the grand jury that you noted that once he was in the back of the ambulance, under better lighting, you were able to tell that he had trauma to the right side of his head.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
Are you talking about the major trauma that he suffered to the back of his head, or the egg that you earlier described?
I was more just because it was directly in front of me. It was on the front side of his head.
Okay, so it wasn't the right side of his head. If you said right side of your head, you might point above your ear, right?
Correct,
That's not
yes.
where you're talking about.
I was, and if, to use my person, I would say right here. So more towards the right, above his right eye.
Right of center, but still on the front of his head.
Correct.
And you did not make any note of another injury on the back of his head.
No.
You talked about the injuries to the right side of his arm, correct?
Correct.
You noted that those injuries appeared to be scratches.
Yes.
That's your word, not mine, right?
Correct.
You didn't say that those were blunt force trauma.
No.
You didn't say that they were abrasions.
Scratches and abrasions, in my point of view, seem to go hand in hand.
But the word that you used was scratches.
Yes, there were like furrows down.
Say that again?
Furrows, if you will, for lack of a better term. Just
I don't understand that word.
so if you remove something,
Yes.
Like you create a furrow in the skin. Is that?
Furrows.
Yes, there you go. Sorry. Excuse my accent.
Oh, no. I'm on your turf.
Fair enough.
It's my accent. I'm so sorry. Boy, that one. It's going to be a meme somewhere.
Hey, my cousin Vinny.
Yeah, got it. All right. So when you said furrows, you made your hand in almost like a claw and drug it against your right biceps.
Objection.
Sustained.
Can you repeat the movement that you did for the jurors when you said furrows?
Objection.
Sustained. Just move on to the next question, please.
You would agree that a very common cause of a hematoma over one's eye is being hit or punched.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
You said that Mr. O'Keefe did have such a hematoma over his right eye, correct?
Yes.
Did you also see a laceration under the eyebrow but above the lid on his right eye?
I don't recall.
Did you see a laceration on Mr. O'Keefe's nose?
I don't recall.
You did note that there was some blood on his nose, correct?
Correct.
Is that possible that came from a small laceration?
Yes.
In your experience, well, let me ask another question. Did it look like he had, in addition to the egg on the right side of his head,
Mhm.
In the front, did it also have a black eye on the left side?
If memory serves correct, yes.
So both eyes were blackened.
Primarily the right side, if memory serves.
Okay. And the laceration toward the right side
Yes.
of the right eye. Are those injuries that you just described consistent or inconsistent with some sort of physical altercation?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. Next question, please.
Did it appear to you, just from your initial assessment, given your experience, training, and background, that those injuries looked like he had been in a fight?
Objection.
I'll see counsel at sidebar, please.
Thank you.
Sir.
Just a little break. In your experience as obviously a training firefighter, tell me the word again that you used.
Field training officer or preceptor.
Thank you. As a field training officer, have you seen in your experience the product or the injuries that can be produced from fistfights? Yes. Okay. Injuries to the face?
Yes.
Injuries to the mouth?
Yes.
Injuries to the nose?
Yes.
To the ears?
Yep.
To the eyes? Defensive wounds on the hands?
Yes.
Did you note we've already talked about, and I don't want to go over all this again. You've already noted what the injuries to the face were that you saw Mr. O'Keefe having suffered.
Yes.
Were those consistent or inconsistent with a physical altercation?
I couldn't say.
Were they consistent or inconsistent with being in a fight?
I couldn't say.
Was that egg over his right eye consistent or inconsistent with him having been punched or hit?
I couldn't say.
I thought you said that one of the common causes of an egg like that, a hematoma, as you put it, over someone's eye, is being hit or punched.
There's quite a few reasons that somebody could get an egg, such as that over their head. I mean, you could get hit with a golf ball,
Of course.
for instance.
I'm not asking you to the exclusion of everything else.
Yeah.
I'm asking you, is it consistent?
It's consistent. It could be.
Okay. And the other injuries as well?
Correct.
Okay. Did you see bruising to the back of one or both of his hands?
His hands were, as stated, they were very cold and very white. They were not well perfused. And when you don't have adequate perfusion, swelling and smaller injuries don't typically present themselves, if you will.
So you may not have seen that.
Correct.
The bruising may have been there.
It might have been there. It just wasn't observable just due to the condition of his hands.
Just may have overlooked it.
Yes.
Okay. You indicated that you were not present when your colleague, Katie McLaughlin, was questioning anybody at the scene, correct?
Correct.
She was tasked with that responsibility, but you did not engage with her.
Correct.
Meaning, when I say engage with her, you weren't standing there with her.
No, I was in the back of the ambulance.
Okay. You claim to have heard this statement, I hit him,
Yes.
several times from the woman with blood on her face.
Correct.
You indicated that she was erratic,
Correct.
hysterical.
Correct.
You said, for lack of a better term, running around in circles.
Yes.
She seemed despondent or distraught,
Very distraught.
very upset.
Yes.
Was she saying anything else that you recall?
To me, I heard I hit him, and then I went back, obviously continuing on patient care, focusing on patient care.
Did you hear her say, could I have hit him?
I heard I hit him.
That's what you believe at this point?
That's what I heard.
Okay. Where exactly were you?
I was crouched at the head of Mr. O'Keefe.
Okay. You were asked that exact question at the grand jury, correct? To describe where you were and who was doing what?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay. You were asked a question when you spoke to her and she said, I hit him. Were you with the other representatives, sir, there at the time? Were there other people around you? You remember being asked that question by a grand juror?
I don't recall.
Do you remember answering, no, there were other people around me. I had paramedics Flamati with me. I believe firefighter Kelly was there as well.
Correct. So the three of us were all providing patient care around Mr. O'Keefe.
And you indicated that we were all there together. You were kneeling and you were doing the airway while you called him Tony.
Yes, that's Anthony Tony. Yes.
All right. He was doing the CPR, correct?
Correct.
And it's absolutely clear in your mind that when that statement was made, you were knelt down over Mr. O'Keefe. Flamati was doing CPR. Kelly was with you guys, and you posed the question to her, do you know him? Correct?
Correct.
Great. So I want to make sure I understand this. You said, as you're knelt down, do you know him, directly to the female, and she answered your question with, I hit him.
Yes.
But that's not what you told Trooper Proctor in a February 8th interview.
Okay. I don't recall what I told Trooper Proctor.
Let's start at the beginning. Do you remember having a conversation with Trooper Proctor on February 8th?
I do.
That was obviously much closer in time than your grand jury testimony, correct?
Correct.
And years closer in time than your testimony now.
Correct.
Do you recall on February 8th telling Trooper Proctor that while you were rendering aid, you heard Karen say, I hit him, to another female on the scene?
To another female, as I stated, I heard several times I hit him. In terms of who that was directed towards, I mean, again, focused on patient care.
Understood. My question was a little bit different. Do you recall telling Trooper Proctor specifically that while you were rendering aid, you heard Karen say, I hit him, to another female on the scene? And the other female told Karen to be quiet.
I do recall that.
Okay. That's not what you testified to today, though.
Okay.
Matter of fact, that story has changed to you posed a question
Mhm.
and she answered your question. Correct?
Correct.
So which is it?
So when ventilating a patient, typically that is also used to gather information from bystanders, because as I'm ventilating, I can real quick look around. Do you know this individual? Do you know anything about this individual? That's fairly typical for any scenario in this. It's a very quick information gathering strategy.
But you'll agree that your testimony today has changed from what it was from your statement to Trooper Proctor on February 8th.
I don't know if it would so much say change, sir. To be honest, I don't fully recall that meeting with Mr. Proctor.
You don't, I'm sorry.
I remember meeting with him. However, I don't fully remember what was discussed.
So it's fair to say that your memory is a little bit faulty as it pertains to that time frame.
Absolutely.
Okay. When you went to the hospital with the patient, did you ever inform any of the doctors or nurses or medical professionals at the hospital that you had heard a female claim to have hit John O'Keefe, and that's the reason for his injuries?
I did not give the report to the hospital.
So the answer to that is no.
No.
You did not. As a first responder and a medical professional yourself, obviously you know that the cause and manner of the victim's injuries are incredibly important as it pertains to assessing how to treat that patient.
Correct.
Once you got back to the station and to take a breath,
Mhm.
Did you write any report?
I did not. No, I did not write the patient care report.
So you didn't write a report that said, by the way, while I was out at the scene, I heard a female say, I hit him, and that's the cause and manner of the injuries.
Not to my knowledge.
Well, you would know if you wrote a report that said that,
Correct.
and you did not.
I did not write the patient care report.
Okay. At any time that day or any day subsequent thereto, did you contact the Canton Police Department, which were the first responders?
I did not.
Let me finish my
Sorry.
question. And say, by the way, just so you know, I heard this woman say I hit him out at the scene.
I did not.
Did you ever, on that day or any day subsequent thereto, contact the Massachusetts State Police and say, I heard this person say I hit him?
I did not.
So the first time you ever repeated that statement was on February 8th with Trooper Proctor.
Correct.
And by the time we've come full circle to today, that statement has now pivoted.
In terms,
You didn't you didn't overhear the person say it to a female. Now she's talking directly to you now.
she spoke directly to me, yes.
Have you, just one last point. You've obviously noted that this case has gotten an enormous amount of notoriety, correct?
Correct.
How many times would you say that you've discussed this case and this incident with your fellow firefighters?
It's brought up around the station semi-frequently. However, being involved in it, we try to stay clear of it just because we are involved in it.
So the answer is there've been many discussions,
Yes.
probably daily.
Frequently.
Have any of those discussions helped you with what you earlier described as a little bit of a faulty memory around that time frame?
Objection, Your Honor.
He can have that. Have they?
Repeat the question for me, sir.
Sure. Have any of those discussions helped you with what you earlier described as a little bit of a faulty memory?
The memories that I have and the ones that I'm bringing up, I don't believe that they've changed. You know, I've played them over in my head to the best of my ability, and I don't believe my story is swayed. If they've been enunciated incorrectly on my part. That it wasn't intentional.
Understood. And,
Yeah.
and nobody's casting aspersions.
Yeah.
Memory's a funny thing. So your memory is as good about that as it is about that winter coat.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. That's all I have.
Mr. Lally?
Mr. Nuttall, when it comes to you being asked about consistency of causality as far as different injuries that you observed on Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Rephrase that for me.
Poorly phrased on my part. So you have been asked on cross-examination about some things that the injuries you observed on Mr. O'Keefe could be consistent with as far as having been the cause of those injuries, correct?
Correct.
And how many sort of myriad of other causality or how many myriad of other sort of things could have also been a cause of the injuries that you observed?
As stated, a lot. It's not typically just physical altercations. It could be, again, a golf ball could hit you in the head. That could cause similar injuries.
Just for clarity purposes, when you were asked about a particular time frame, were you talking about the time frame of January 29th, or were you talking about the time frame of February 8th when you met with Trooper Crawford?
Sorry, sir, rephrase that for me.
Let me withdraw that and move on to something else. So what, just again, for clarity purposes, when you were asked about some statements that were attributed to you to Trooper Proctor during an interview, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so with regard to what you recall differently, is it the statement that the person, the female with the blood on her face made to you, or the statement of the other female telling that person to be quiet?
So as stated, real quick, down and dirty, I asked, do you know this person? To which I hit him. And then in the background, I remember hearing over and over, I hit him. That was kind of pushed towards the back, and patient care took priority, if that answers your question.
Do you recall specifically at this time the other statements that you were asked about as far as whether or not the other female told that female to be quiet?
I do remember that, correct.
And the other statement as far as the female with blood on her face, and again, that was the differentiating character between the two females that you observed there, correct?
Correct.
And your memory of that statement is, I hit him, correct?
Correct.
Nothing further.
All right, Mr. Nuttall, you are all set, sir.
Thank you, everybody.
Do you have another witness, Mr. Lally, to start?
Yes, sir. Your Honor, the Commonwealth will call Mr. Anthony Flamati to the stand.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the evidence you give the court and jury in the case now and here and to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
How are you?
Could you please state your name and spell your last name?
Name is Anthony Flamati. Last name spelled Flematti.
And how are you employed, sir?
I'm a acting lieutenant at this time for the Canton Fire Department.
And how long in total have you worked for the Canton Fire Department?
Got hired in 2015, July of 2015. So coming up on 10 years.
And prior to working with the Canton Fire Department, what, if any, other work did you have within sort of the same field?
So in the same field, I worked for the Athol Fire Department for a few years, hired in 2012, March 2012 until July of 2015. So just transferred departments.
And even prior to working with the Athol Fire Department, did you work as an EMT anywhere?
Yep. So I worked as an EMT for American Medical Response out of Springfield and Holyoke. Worked for Fallon Ambulance. Started basic level of EMT around 2008, and then just different private ambulance companies around the state.
And just starting with the EMT side of it for the first, what if any training did you receive or education did you receive prior to getting your certification as an EMT?
There's different levels of certifications for EMTs. The EMT basic starts out with about 6 months, a couple nights a week for about, like I said, about 6 months. Take a certification, practical and written examination for that to get your basic level, and then you move on to the paramedic level of schooling as well.
Can you describe for the jury a little bit about sort of what that paramedic level of schooling is?
So the paramedic schooling starts, it's about 12 to 14 months, depends on the program, which school you go to. Night school 2 to 4 times a week for about 14 months. And then you start going into a clinical phase where you go into the different operating rooms, emergency rooms, OB/GYN, cardiac CCU, ICU. You do about 300 hours of education in that. Once you've completed a bunch of skill checkoffs under the supervision of an RN or a doctor, depending on the room, you would then clear that section of your schooling and then move on to a ride time phase, which is about 200 to 300 hours, depending on skills, what you need. That would be either in a fire department or a private EMS under the preceptorship of a senior paramedic that would kind of walk you through how to do the job and shadow you and supervise that you're doing things appropriately. You do that for about 200 or 300 hours. You write up different documentation, basically learning how to do it out of the clinical set and then more of in the field set. After that, you would, whatever job you have at that point, you would do an additional practical assessment, again, about 6 or 7 different stages of evaluation for physical skills. Then you would do a written test, again, with the state. At that time, it was the state, Massachusetts, to certify you as a paramedic. Then after that, they have another 2 to 6 month preceptorship within the department to acclimate you to the physical location that you're working at.
And so there's a written portion and a practical portion
Yes.
to both the EMT as well as the paramedic training.
Yes, that's correct.
And you successfully completed that and received certifications in regard to both.
Yes.
And those certifications, are they something that is just sort of a one-time blessing, or is that something that has a continuing educational component and a recertification?
That's correct. So every 2 years, we have to do a 48-hour refresher. So it's continuing education classes as far as national core curriculum classes that the national standard holds us to. So it covers different topics that they mandate that we cover every 2 years.
And your certification is up to date at this point, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that you're currently a lieutenant within the Canton Fire Department, is that correct?
Yes.
And how long have you been, have you had the rank of lieutenant?
I'm a temporary acting lieutenant, so I've been that since, I believe it was February up till this time.
And within the town of Canton, how many fire station or firehouses do you have within Canton?
So we have 2 different stations, headquarters and Station 2, that we operate out of.
And do you work specifically in one, or does it sort of rotate between them?
Depends on the rank. So as a firefighter, we'd rotate through the different positions or different stations. As the lieutenant, I'm the lieutenant right now at Station 1, so headquarters.
And where is Station 1 located?
99 Revere Street.
And with respect to each of the 2 station houses, how many sort of different vehicles and apparatus are located?
So we have, depends on what's obviously in service for mechanical issues and stuff, but we have a primary engine, a backup engine. We try to have at each station. We have 1 tanker truck, 2 ladder trucks. We have 2 primary ambulances and then a backup ambulance as well. So we try to have at least 1 engine, 1 ambulance, 1 ladder at each station, and then we'll have the backup pieces for that. And I believe our tanker truck right now, or our water truck, is out of Station 2.
And Station 2, where is that located?
7 Sassamon Street.
Now, as far as the sort of shift, how many people are assigned to, when you're assigned to, let me ask you this first. when you have a shift, what hours is that shift sort of concern?
So for shifting or shift work, it's 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. the next day. So we work 24-hour shifts. We'd have a 24 period off from work, another 24, and then we're off for 5 days.
And when you're assigned to a certain shift for that 24-hour period, are you assigned to sort of a specific duty or a truck, or how does that work?
We're usually just assigned to a specific position for either the 10-hour or the 14, depending on rotations, overtime, that kind of stuff. But we're usually assigned to an individual piece or individual position for that shift, at least, whether it's a day shift or the whole 24.
And so starting with just the ambulance, if you're assigned to the ambulance, how many people and what are the different roles in the ambulance?
So the ambulance, we would have 2 people assigned to the ambulance. We rotate either through seniority or through care level, whether paramedic, EMT. If you're both paramedics, then it would go by seniority and swap back and forth for call volume and teching, who's in charge of the call. And then we would also cross man with the ladder as well. So depending on the call that comes in for service, we would either, on a fire call, we could take the ladder, medical call, we could take the ambulance.
And with respect to the engine, how is that sort of divvied up, or what are the different roles on an engine?
So with the engine, if we have a full staff of 13 members, we would have 4 people on the engine. If there's a couple of people off vacation, that type of thing, we could do, it's the driver, the step, and then the lieutenant in charge of the engine.
Now, if I could turn your attention to January 28th into the evening of January 28th into the morning of January 29th, were you working on that occasion?
Yes,
Okay, you were working 8 a.m. on the 28th until 8 a.m. on the 29th, is that correct?
that's correct.
And which firehouse were you working out of on that occasion?
I believe it was Station 1 at the time.
And what was your assignment in relation to that shift, whether it was ambulance, truck, or engine, whatever?
That would have been ambulance 1.
And who, if anyone else, was assigned to ambulance 1 along with you with that?
At the time, I was working with Matthew Leahy, Matthew Kelly. We have a lot of similar names.
And what, if any, disparity was there between sort of the experience that you had versus the experience that Mr. Kelly had at that time?
So Mr. Kelly had just started with the department at the BLS level at the EMTB, probably 2 or 3 months prior. I had just finished up his preceptorship, getting him onboarded as a new hire in EMT, so very minimal experience at that time.
So fair to say any sort of medical calls, you would have been sort of what they call the lead paramedic, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, with reference to that particular time frame, 28th, 29th, what, if anything, were you aware of as far as sort of weather, forecast, that?
Yeah, so leading into that shift, I knew there was a storm coming, and I had always lived a good distance away from work. So I would try and tie overtime shifts in so I wouldn't have to commute more than once back and forth. But with the storm coming, wanted to not have to drive into the weather. So I picked up overtime the night before that shift.
And about what time did you arrive the night before?
The night before, I arrived at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. is the start of the shift.
And so you were essentially on shift for a relatively significant period of time leading into the morning of the 29th, correct?
That's correct.
And you mentioned that there was a storm that was forecasted. What, if anything else, do you recall about sort of what type of storm or what was predicted?
Predicted it was going to be a pretty significant storm, heavy winds, heavy snow. Not something I wanted to drive in the morning. So if the opportunity arose, I took the overtime for that night.
What did it turn out to be as far as?
Exactly as predicted. We hadn't gotten much snow up until about midnight or so, and then snow developed since pretty much then on.
And in a moment, I'm going to ask you about a call around 6 a.m., but just if I could take you back a little bit before that, over sort of the overnight shift, did you have any dispatches or calls that you responded to, say, after midnight, but prior to 6 a.m.?
I don't believe so. I don't recall how many calls were prior to that. That one was kind of the key of the night.
So you mentioned sort of, what, if any, memory do you have as far as like sort of when it started to snow?
It would have been after 10 p.m. for sure, but I'm not sure exactly.
Now, turning your attention to a little bit after 6 a.m., you get a dispatch for a medical call, correct?
Correct.
And just prior to that, what about time did you sort of get up, rise, and sort of, start doing things around the station that day?
So shift change usually happens around 8 a.m. in the morning. It takes a while to get everything ready for normal business hours. We try and get the station prepped for public that come into the building or just people passing, going around. We try to prepare the sidewalks, the apron. So we get up around 5:30, if depending on call volume throughout the night. Sometimes we're up throughout the whole night. But we got up that morning around 5 to shovel, snow blow, salt the public walkways, that type of thing.
And specifically when it comes to the apron, that's sort of the area in front of the garage doors. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so why is it so important to sort of clear off the apron as far as snow is concerned?
So as far as in front of the apparatus doors, it's a very limited height clearance between the top of the fire apparatus and the actual garage bay doors. So a few inches of snow would be enough to cause us to bump into the ceiling of the apparatus garage doors. So we have to keep that relatively almost bare to be able to pull the apparatus out without causing any damage.
And about what time was it that you and the other firefighters at your station started to sort of clear off, whether it be the parking lot, the apron, or anything else as far as snow?
I'd say about 5:15, 5:30.
And at the time that you get this call, shortly after 6 a.m., about how much snow was on the ground at that point, if you know?
It's probably 4 to 6 inches.
And this dispatch that comes in shortly after 6 a.m., what was the dispatch in regard to it, and where were you dispatched to?
So we didn't have much information going out the door, just that there was a man on the side of the road. And we, due to the weather, there could be a significant call. So
Before I leave and depart on that, just for 1 second, when it comes to when you're outside sort of shoveling off the apron and clearing some of the parking lot, in addition to the snow, what, if anything else, did you note as far as sort of the weather conditions, visibility, things like that?
So visibility was extremely poor. High winds, probably 20, 30 mile an hour winds. Temperature probably in the 20s with still actively snowing at that time.
And the winds, to the best of your recollection, was this something that was just sort of a gust, or was it sort of persistent?
Sustained winds and then probably gusts as well.
And so you received this dispatch, and you, I'm presuming, get in the ambulance and go, correct?
Correct.
And who, if anyone, is in the ambulance with you when you respond?
So responding in, I had myself, Matthew Kelly, and firefighter Nuttall had come in early as well to try and beat the storm and get in on time, because he was scheduled to come in at 8 a.m. that morning anyways. But with the heavy snow, wanted to make sure he could get in and be able to relieve the people coming off.
And within the ambulance, where was everybody sort of situated on route to the call?
I believe Matthew Kelly was driving, I was in the passenger seat, and Nuttall was in the back of the truck.
And as far as during the course of your going from Station 1 to the scene on Fairview Road, what, if anything, did you note as far as sort of the road conditions, visibility as you were driving?
So that neighborhood is actually relatively close to the station, so you normally get there in a couple minutes, but it was slow driving over there. So I remember going pretty slow to get over to the scene.
And as far as this particular time of day, what was sort of the lighting like at that point? Had the sun come up or anything like that?
Sun had not come up yet. It was still dark, heavy winds, heavy snow, so visibility was almost zero.
And as far as what, if any, other sort of apparatuses from your station were dispatched to this call as well at the same time?
So the other call would have been, or the other vehicle would have been engine 3, and just engine 3. Car 5 will sometimes go. That's the shift commander for the department, depending on the nature of the call, how it comes in, and the ambulance. So it would have been the 3 apparatus.
And do you recall who, if anyone, was in either car 5 or the engine?
So car 5 would have been, at the time, Captain Wendell Robery. In the engine, it would have been Frank Walsh, Katie McLaughlin, and the lieutenant for the engine was Greg Woodbury.
And you mentioned it took a little bit longer than without the weather to get to Fairview Road. Is that correct?
That's correct.
If you have any idea approximately how much time elapsed between the time that you received the call and the time that you arrived on scene?
I'd have to refer to the EMS report. That is going to be more accurate, but I believe it was 5 or 6 minutes.
And to that point, with any call, there's an EMS report that's prepared by, who is it prepared by?
So it's usually the person who texts the call or is in charge of the call. This was an ALS level call, so it would have been myself.
So you wrote as far as the report in relation to EMS arrival, and within that is contained sort of different times that things happen along the way, correct?
Correct.
And the times that are noted within that report, is that something that's noted as it's happening, or is that something that you go back and figure out at a later time?
So as we're going through the call and radio messages are sent, that's all documented on a third party that documents timestamps, things like that. As far as on scene, transport, clear from the hospital, that type of thing. It's all third party documented.
May I approach the witness, John?
Yes.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 160. Specifically turning to the 7th page and asking you to direct your attention to the far right column. You see that portion of the report, sir?
Yes,
Okay. First and foremost, what I placed before you as Exhibit 160, that's your report, correct?
correct.
Okay. And on that right column of the 7th page in view, what, if anything, do you see with regard to times?
So we have our dispatch time 6:06 en route time 6:07, on scene 6:14, at patient 6:15, and we are transported from that scene at 6:27 and arrived at destination at the hospital 6:45.
And that destination hospital would have been Good Samaritan Medical Center, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, if you could, going back to sort of your dispatch from Station House to Fairview Road, can you describe sort of the path as far as what direction, what route you took to get from one to the other?
Yep. So from Revere Street, we would have come out, taken a right onto Revere Street, gone to the end of that road, taken a left on Sherman, driven all the way up to Chapman Street, taken a right on Chapman Street, gone up to Fairview Street, and then taken a left on that. And that would have brought us down to the address.
And as you're coming down Fairview, are you familiar with that area?
Yes.
Okay. And so as you're coming down Fairview, is there any kind of grade or elevation to the roadway as you're coming down?
Yep. So that is a downhill towards about halfway down the road. So a pretty good grade that's coming downwards.
And the address that you responded to with 34 Fairview Road, when you're coming from the direction that you were coming off of Chapman, is that a residence that's on your left or right or something else?
That would have been on the left.
And when you arrive on scene, what, if any, other sort of vehicles or apparatuses do you observe beyond sort of what you've already described as
So we had the fire apparatus. There's another vehicle, bystander vehicle, that was on scene as well. I don't recall if police were on scene at that time, but
And when you first sort of pull up to the scene, what, if anything, is it that you observe even prior to getting out of the truck or the ambulance?
so as we're pulling up to the scene, we see two female parties, non-uniformed personnel, that were going back and forth between the body and the side of the street and back and forth. Appeared to be a female party that was pushing on his chest and then going back and forth between the other female party and the patient.
And again, so when you first sort of pull up, you're able to see the body on the ground. Is that correct?
It was, yes, you could see a body, but it was very hard to see that distance away.
And do you recall any sort of like overhead or ambient lighting, street lighting, or anything like that illuminating in that area?
I don't recall.
Now, this individual, as far as the person on the ground, at some point you were able to subsequently identify who that was. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Who did you identify him?
So identification won't normally happen right at that bedside. That's not really relevant to initial treatment. We found out who it was when we got into the ambulance and were able to do a more thorough search once interventions had started.
So when you first arrive on scene, fair to say you're primarily or only sort of concerned with patient care, correct?
Yep, correct.
To the point you sort of tunnel vision to the patient, correct? Yeah. So you arrive on scene and you get out of the ambulance and where is it that you go?
So we then go grab all of the equipment that we're going to need to work on the patient, and then we bring that equipment over to the patient side to be able to start treatment.
All right. Mr. Fulani, I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to stop you, Ms. Tallali. Jurors, that's it for today. We are not in session tomorrow. Remind you, please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about the case, please disregard it. Let us know. We'll see you on Thursday morning, and Thursday will be a hot day. Thank you very much.
All rise for the court, please. Follow me.
That she stopped them in the middle of testifying. I'm not really sure what the point of that was. She could have waited until the Commonwealth was done with whatever they were asking and then, you know, stopped before cross. I mean, really, realistically, you kind of want to finish, you know, like you want to finish questioning. I don't really understand why she did. Screen up here. Why she did that. But yeah, it's weird. I don't know. Like, I get that they have a half day today, but she did it right at 1 o'clock. Like, it's 1:01. Like, I get that you're doing a half day, but like, this is going to be a very long trial. There's a lot of moving parts in here, like a lot of moving parts. And what we just heard from the EMT previous to this last guy here, Mr. Nettle, was Karen saying that I hit him. That was said multiple times. Now we're hearing that multiple witnesses heard it. That even either Kerry or Jen, I'm not sure which one, told her to be quiet. That's not going to be good for, like, that's a jury is not going to look at that and be like, disregard. I mean, so a few minutes, I don't know if it was a few minutes ago, but I got a screenshot a few minutes ago, and Aiden says it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that she said I hit him, because he believes that the accident reconstructionist said she didn't. Well, whoa. First of all, that's not true. That's false. That is not what the accident reconstructionist said. That John's head didn't hit the car, number one. Number two, it does matter. It matters to a jury. It may not matter to him, but it matters the hell to a jury if multiple people are testifying that she said, I hit him. Like, it sure the hell does matter. There are 12 people deciding her fate. So of course it matters. And of course it does. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. It doesn't matter. It does matter. Like, it does matter. It matters to the jury who's going to make the decision of whether she's going to go to jail or not. Like, it matters very much so. So I don't know where he gets, like, it doesn't matter. It does matter. It absolutely matters. Everything matters. That's the thing, especially things that are consistent through this trial. If these witnesses are going to be consistent with what they remember, that's going to be a very big problem for the defense. Right now, what I'm seeing is the defense sort of trying to break down the memories of the people who were there by being like, well, you got a faulty memory, therefore trying to put it into the jury's heads that, like, they don't really actually remember what happened. That's not what happened. Like, they may be just remembering that because people have been talking about it, right? Like, that's where they were going with that. Do I think it'll work? No, I don't. But that's where they're going with it. they're absolutely going into a place to be like, faulty memory. You only remember it because you talked about it later on. And, that's not what happened. Are you sure she didn't say, are you sure it wasn't? Dude, that's aggravating. I'm sorry, guys. Let me just shut my slider because they're like cutting down the trees over here and it's super duper loud with the chainsaw. Like, I can't focus with the chainsaw in my ear. But it does matter. It absolutely matters. But the defense right now is definitely trying to take the credibility of the witnesses and say, hey, you don't remember what you actually are telling us you remember, right? You're only remembering it because people talked later on about it or it was talked about around the firehouse. Like, are you sure that didn't distort your story? And Mr. Nettles was very clear. No, I remember. Like, he might be focused on patient care, but that doesn't mean you don't notice the other things around you, right? Like, yes, you're focused on this one thing, right? Of course. Just like I'm focused on you guys right now doesn't mean I didn't hear the chainsaw, right? I heard the chainsaw. I can still hear it through the slider even closed. Like, I still remember that I heard the chainsaw, right? Like, this guy is saying, yeah, I'm focused on patient care, but how can you miss somebody running around saying, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him? You can't. And of course, like, Jackson tries to play this game where he's like, well, that's not what you testified to Mr. Proctor. Well, it is what he testified to. What he testified to is two separate things that he's trying to say are like a change of story. It's not a change of story. Both of those things happened, right? Like, both of those things happened. When he was crouched down and he was sort of getting information, she said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. And then, as she goes back and says it to whoever, Carrie, Jen, whoever, and they tell her to be quiet. Those two things happened. Both of them happened. So to try to say he changed his story because what he told Trooper Proctor about the first thing, like, maybe he didn't think the second thing was relevant until the grand jury asked. Like, it's not a change of story. Both of those things still happened, right? Like, they still happened. And I don't think the jury's going to see it as a change of story the way Jackson tried to make it at all, because after Lally got back up, it's him explaining exactly why, like, it still happened. Like, even if you said it to the, Trooper Proctor and you were like, hey, this is what happened when I crouched down. Like, he may not have thought it was relevant to be like, I've already said that she was running around saying, I hit him, I hit him. I don't think it's relevant to say this chick here, said, hey, be quiet, right? Until he was asked again by a grand jury. And then, of course, they probably found out from one of the other witnesses that happened, and one of them told them to be quiet. So they asked that question to the grand jury, and then he answered it. So it's not a change of story. And I don't think the jurors are going to buy it at all. There are 12 people sitting up there, right? 12 people and alternate jurors, of course. But 12 people who are going to decide whether Karen's going to go to jail for this or not. And the defense, in my opinion, is not doing so hot right now. Like, they're going to need to really step it up here in order to put some doubt. Because right now, I'm not seeing the doubt. Like, their job is to sow any reasonable doubt. We have multiple witnesses saying that they heard her say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. Multiple witnesses, not just one EMT, like everybody was everybody was led to believe. It was just one EMT that the Alberts and McCabe's knew, right? That's the information we were led to believe. That's obviously not true. There was multiple people, all different people that heard the exact same thing. That is going to be a very big thorn in the defense's side. It's the spin is amazing to me, when the case stops for the day every day and you go and you look on Twitter or Facebook and, the amazing amount of spin you see. I just suggest everyone uses their own brains. Watch the trial. Look at the evidence. Listen with your own ears and eyes. Don't let someone else say to you, you didn't see what you saw. You didn't hear what you heard, and it doesn't matter. It very much matters. It matters to a jury of 12. It's always going to matter to a jury of 12. You have to remember, anything that the attorneys ask or the Commonwealth asks, that's not evidence. evidence is literally the answers from the witnesses. That is what's considered evidence in a trial, right? The testimony of the witnesses, opening statements, closing statements. That's not considered, it's just opening and closing statements. It's not considered any sort of evidence. So they can say pretty much whatever they want and throw in their conjecture to opening and closing statements. But even in this case, they're not even trying to use, I haven't seen them yet, try to pull out the third party culprit defense, because in order for them to use it, the judge made it abundantly clear that they were going to have to show the relevance and show sort of evidence. And it's not there. It's just not there. So, I mean, all this, I'm still seeing people asking online, where's John's shoe? If I see where's John's shoe one more time, I swear to God, I'm not answering the question. John's shoe was found. It's literally in the documents. There's literally a map of where they found John's shoe. By the way, is consistent with being hit by a vehicle. People's shoes fly off, right? So this whole where's the shoe thing, they found the shoe. There's a map of where the shoe was. This is how misinformation gets out there. One person gets on court TV and goes, but where's the shoe, Benny? Where's the shoe, Benny? Proving that he hasn't clearly read all the documents, because there's a literal map of where they found said shoe, right? Like, so, I mean, it's really about using your own brain. I think what you're going to see most of, because there's nothing tomorrow, right? There's no sort of anything for this tomorrow. And then Thursday, it's a half a day again. And then another full day, I'm guessing Friday. I thought it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday were full days, but the judge is saying there's nothing tomorrow, which is like, okay, cool, whatever. But I think what you're going to see with the witnesses now is you're going to see sort of the defense go in and try to like eat away at what they remember, right? Try to eat away at like whether they actually remember what they remember or not. And then you're going to see them sort of try to dig into the police investigation and say, well, why was this done? And this was not good. And there are explanations for why certain things were done that'll make a complete sense when you see them and when you hear them. So a lot of questions are going to be answered. And I honestly can't wait for them to be answered, because some people are going to feel real duped and lied to, sort of like I did. You're going to feel misled. And I feel for those people, everyday normal people. I'm not talking about these fanatics, right? Like, I don't feel bad for them. They know when they're pretending like they don't. I'm talking about real life people who were really following this case and were very interested and just thought something was up and wanted to be a part of, bringing justice if some corruption was happening. But it wasn't. And when it all boils down to it and all of the evidence comes out in this trial, a lot of people are going to feel real crappy about things they said about other people, the way they treated other people, and the things that they were led to believe. So I just suggest you pay attention. Just pay attention. That's, when they bring the evidence out, listen to the words they're using. Don't let someone take some of the words after and get online and spin part of what was said. Listen with your own ears to everything that is being said, and in the context that it's in. Oftentimes, this is what will happen: is someone will take a piece of what was said, right? A piece of it, go online and be like, but this happened. But see, this is why it's corruption. Bing. With no context and without telling everybody the rest of what was said, right? Like, you lose the entire context by plucking out one piece, right? Like, that's gaslighting, right? Like, you have to see the entire thing. You have to listen and hear the entire thing. You have to read the entire thing, not just a part of it, not just a part of it that fits a narrative, right? Like, if I can pluck out any one thing in anything and make it a narrative. You can make a mountain out of a molehill. I can make this pen bad. This pen could be bad. I can make it bad, right? Like, you can do whatever you want. It's about people actually using their brains to understand what's really happening and how to use their own brains to figure it out. Because at this point, I can't help anybody else figure it out. I can't. Lots of people have figured it out. Lots of people know what's coming. And I know there's going to be a lot of people that feel really shitty. And that sucks. That sucks because it's not fair. It's not okay. You know, being misled, the conjecture, the false accusations, it's all a load of crap. It's all a load of crap. It's sad, nonetheless. Absolutely sad. If you feel the need every day of your life to harass, demean, and slander people you've never met and you don't know, then maybe it's time to take a good look in the mirror. Just maybe, right? Like, just maybe. Because if you're going on the word of someone else about someone you've never met, why not make that decision for yourself? Why are you allowing someone else to make it for you? So I'm going to tell you right now, nobody's going to tell me something about someone else. For Grant, for instance, I'm not going to take somebody else's opinion of Grant. I have met Grant. So I'm not going to have somebody else tell me like, Grant, bad. You not like Grant. Like we're cavemen or something. Grant did this, this, and this. Well, Grant's never done anything to me. Grant's been nothing but kind. And so I'm not going to adopt somebody else's opinion of Grant. I'm not going to do it. That would be ridiculous. Like, I'm just not going to do it. And nobody should be adopting somebody else's opinion of someone they've never met. All the lies, all the false rumors, like all of that. Like, take a good look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, is it okay to be harassing? And I mean harassing. Phone calls, texts, you name it, harassing a single mother of 4 and thinking that it's okay. What world do we live in? Do we live in the Twilight Zone now, where one man on YouTube says, every person I've ever come in contact with, been with, or acquainted with is bad. And I'm the victim. Poor me. Everybody's out to get me. Everything's a conspiracy. Wah, wah, me. Everyone else is bad. And I'm going to spread misinformation, lies, spin, conjecture. I'm going to take out the parts. I'm going to omit the parts of the things that I did. I'm not going to show you the rest of the message that shows the full context. I'm going to show you what I want to show you so that you think this person is evil and bad and mean. Because that's what's happening right now. That's what's happening right now. I think it's time for people to grow up. If you have nothing better to do with your day but harass a single mother of 4 because someone else said she was bad, come on now. What are we, children? What is this, middle school? Have you met her? Do you know her? Have you met her children? I have. Have you seen the evidence? I have. So I'm going to tell you right now, the smearing, it's ridiculous. You guys are going to feel real bad. It's going to feel shitty deep inside. Like when you realize what's happening. Like, I mean, I can't tell people what to do or what not to do, but I can tell you to use your damn common sense, dude. Use your common sense. One person cannot have every person who has ever known them or been in any sort of relationship or acquaintance or friend of. It can't be that every person they've ever met is bad and has to be bashed online. It just can't be. It's mathematically impossible. Like, it's mathematically impossible. So why does it end that way? Why is it a constant smear of anybody who doesn't agree, anybody who can tell the truth? Stop and think to yourselves, why? These patterns don't, the constant contradictions, sentence after sentence, and nobody can figure, like, it's amazing to me that I even have to say this. Like, it's quite amazing. I mean, you all have brains in your heads, right? Like, use them. Use them. Use them. Wait to see the evidence, because I promise you, you're going to be quite pissed off when it all comes out. But is it worth your time to sit and harass someone for someone else just because they said they're bad and they said they're lying? I promise you, that's not the person who's lying. So, I mean, it's getting a little ridiculous at this point. It's absurd. Like, this is a case, guys, okay? And unless you know these people personally, which you don't, right? You have no idea how it's affected their lives. People have attacked a kid who was 17 when this happened, who has his whole life ahead of him. Let me let you in on a little secret. He wasn't even in the house. He left before Karen and John got there, and there is proof of that. Some of you decided you were going to call his college, name him a murderer of a 17-year-old kid. Might not be 17 anymore, but he's not quite much older than that. It's about 19 now. His whole life ahead of him, and has been affected forever and ever. How's that okay? You think you're doing LG's kids any favors by constantly harassing their mother or putting things online that they can read? What do old court documents about children have anything to do with anything? They don't. It's intended to smear, harass, intimidate. That's all the intent is. That kid can Google that. Like, and I hope people realize that when you put out documents like that, it's one side versus the other, right? Like, you go to court with your ex-husband, right? Your ex-husband's going to write a thing and you're going to write a thing. Is it all true? Is it all, someone's wrong and someone's right? Right? Like, there are lies in that paperwork. Like, that. Use your brains, dude. Apply it to your real life and say, wait a second, is that feasible? Does that make sense? Like, I refuse to allow someone to sit there and slander someone who's been sober and who has gotten their life together. I've been sober over a decade from drugs, over a decade. We're closing in on 16 years this year. So to sit there and call someone a junkie who's been sober for years and try to demean them for the struggles that they went through when they made it out the other side and they did better for their lives, that's disgusting. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Everyone has struggles. Everybody has trials and tribulations. And we shouldn't be demeaning people for mistakes they made or traumas that they had. Does anybody do it to you? Every person on planet Earth has something they don't want the world to know or something they're not proud of. How would you like it if somebody took that one thing you weren't proud of, right? Say you stole a candy bar when you were a kid. You went to the store and you stole the candy bar, right? Somebody's going to take that. They're going to put it online. They're going to call you a criminal. They're going to say you're a bad person. And they're going to make up all sorts of stories about you. And they're going to take that tiny tidbit of truth, just the tiny tidbit that you stole the candy bar when you were a kid. But they're not going to say that's what it was. They're going to say you're a criminal who just steals things and you're just a bad, bad person without knowing a single thing about you. And even if they do know about you, they know that the rest of the people in the world don't. So you're going to believe everything this person has to say. They're going to make a mountain out of an anthill. Then they're going to add some stuff in there to make you look like a worse person. Some false stories, some assumptions. That's literally what's happening right now. That's legitimately what's happening to numerous people. It's time to grow up, guys. It's time to grow up. It's getting a little ridiculous. I mean, come on. At what point do you stop and think to yourself, this is wrong. This is not okay. And this has happened to numerous people. At what point do you start thinking for yourself and stop reading something off a screen and going, oh my God, that person's so bad. It's a terrible person. It's a terrible, terrible human being. I can't believe they did that. Except they didn't. And the truth is the furthest from what is being put out there. I think this case has brought the worst out in a lot of people. And I think the truth doesn't care, right? The truth doesn't care about what a bunch of people say online, because eventually the truth comes. But in the meantime, does that mean you get to harass, demean, slander, defame a woman and her children? Does that make you like feel better? Does it make you like all pumped up, like all excited that you do that? Like, without knowing a single actual real thing about her, without ever meeting her? Because I'll tell you quite a few things. Here's one. She's an amazing mom. And the only thing she ever thinks about 24/7 is her children. The only thing she does 24/7 is take care of her children. So these like, oh, she's a terrible, but you don't even know her. Where you come up with this? Again, if someone tells you it's true, it must be true, right? Wrong. And you should know that. Come on. If I go and call all of your ex-husbands and ex-wives, are they going to tell me you guys are wonderful people? You're awesomely wonderful people. Now, some of them may. I don't know. Some of them may, because you might still be friends with some of your exes. But some of you, your exes, are going to say the worst things imaginable about you just to make you look bad. Just cuz. That, right? Am I wrong? No, I'm not wrong. I'm right. So, I mean, come on. It's time to stop and use your brain and think if it's okay for the things that you're doing. If you're picking up the phone and you're texting someone on behalf of a man online who wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire, then I think it's time that you stop and use your brain for a second. Like, just stop and think. Is it okay? Like, is this the right thing to do? Or am I just believing things that I'm told? Because I promise you, you're not getting the full story. You're getting a tidbit of truth spun into a giant mountain. That's what you're getting. So you're getting this teeny bit of truth that she used to be an addict, and now we're just going to make it out to be she's a bad, bad person. No. 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 I'm sorry, what? You don't know what the phone extraction shows. And what you're shown on that phone extraction, the things that you are shown, are tidbits of what he wants you to see. It's tidbits. He doesn't want you to see the message after that one, because that would prove that he was lying. He just wants you to see the one message he's going to bring up on the screen, not the one that contradicts it, what he's trying to claim right after it. You know, you can say you heard the video that night, but you weren't there. You have no idea what was going on. Did you know that right before he started recording said video that he decided he was going to stop yelling and screaming for said video and acting a fool? Did you know? I bet you didn't know that, did you? No. Am I a detective? No, I'm not a detective. I've seen all the evidence and I'm her best friend. So, gee, I don't know. I happen to actually lay my eyes on the evidence. So I don't need to be a detective. It's not rocket science when you look at the evidence. It's also not rocket science if you know the patterns of behavior with this person. So I don't need to be a detective or a rocket scientist to figure it out. I use this thing called my brain that a lot of you choose not to use. Like, oh man. Why would Grant have ever been on TV show? That's not even a thing. That never happened. It's not a thing. That did not happen. Never happened. I mean, I'm just saying, if you guys feel the need to harass a single mother of 4, there's something wrong with you, not her. They both have issues. Have you met her? Do you know her? Do you know her? You don't, right? You don't. So again, these are a lot of like assumptions about somebody you don't know. I'm done with the assumptions. I've had it with the assumptions. A lot of people assume a lot of things. And you know what happens when you assume, right? You make an ass out of you and me, well, that's gonna happen. Like, exactly. She knows. She's met her. It's obvious. It's obvious from someone you've never met. Not quite. Not quite. Guess people can just make assumptions about you based on what? They're just going to assume. They're going to say it's obvious. There was a couple people, Katie, that were on there. It was the Glare or LTL, and I'm really not sure who else. I just think of those 2 right off the top of my head. I didn't watch them. I saw clips on like X, but those are the 2 I can think of off the top of my head. But you're making a lot of assumptions about people you don't know. That's, don't make assumptions about people you don't know. It's literally that simple. That might be what you're thinking of, Katie. It could be what you're thinking of. This case is going to last a long time. And then there's going to be more cases after it that are connected to it. It's time people start watching the evidence instead of harassing other people. I mean, you took the time out of your day to harass a single mother of 4 children. Like, you're proud of that. You're like, yay, I harassed a single mother of 4 because someone said she was bad. I'm such a good person. Like, you take the time out of your day to actually use a text now app to text or call someone incessantly and harass them. I mean, what? Like, what? Well, you're gonna hear his name. He's on X. Do you have X? He reports on a lot of things. And he, yeah, I don't know. Grant's a good person though, with a good heart. Once again, anybody who wants to down him, is hearing from, Aiden that he's just bad, or all of his followers that he's just bad. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Again, one person going online and saying, I say mean words. I'm gonna destroy you. Do you know who I am? FYI to everyone, those are the same words he uses to people in messages over and over to harass, intimidate into not doing something. Threaten. I'm gonna say mean words. You know who I am? Puff out my chest. Act like I'm important. Hey, Kara. Speaking of which, people he loves to harass. Like, I mean, wake the fuck up, people. It's not rocket science here. We're the patterns of behavior. When someone says something and the next sentence is a contradiction of what they just said, come on, man. Come on. Seriously. When all you hear constantly from someone is, I'm so scary. I say mean words. I destroy people online. Do you know who I am? I'll destroy you. Like, come on, dude. Come the fuck on with it. Like, it's the same shit over and over and over and over and over. And at what point do you go, holy fuck, wait a second. Another person and another person and another person and another person. Oh, just everyone's bad. Everyone's terrible. Like, oh, do you want to know? I can tell that story real quick. It's a cute little story, but I can tell you it real quick. What made him start shitting on me? Well, the quick answer to that is I didn't lie when Lindsay asked me a question at the Halloween party. And I didn't know that he had lied to numerous women. So therefore, I became public enemy number 1. It's not my fault you cheated on your wife with numerous women. It's not my fault that Lindsay chose to ask me where Lauren was that night. It's not my fault Lauren called me as I was going into the party in tears because he had just told her that he was bringing Lindsay and that another woman existed and she wasn't told. It's not my fault. So when Lindsay asked me, hey, where's Lauren? I want to talk to her. I said, why would Lauren come? She just found out you existed today. Lindsay didn't know that. She didn't know. And I didn't know that she didn't know. I was assuming that she asked it to me because she knew, right? Like I figured he told her, like, I don't, how would I know that? A, I didn't get a memo to lie. B, I don't know what I'm supposed to lie about. C, I'm not lying for anyone. It's not my job to lie for anyone. I'm not doing that. Sorry. So that ensued I'm a public enemy number 1. Right there. That's what happened. Oh, and then Deanna Corby took pictures of Lindsay that I was then blamed for. And Deanna and Lauren kept that quiet for a long time because they were too afraid of what Aiden would do to Deanna until they came clean about it, which Deanna claims that she did. I sent the screenshots are on X there. I put them there. So, but Aiden, as of the other day, was still claiming that I took those pictures that I never took and had no knowledge of until I was accused of it. So yeah, no, it's not. It's not my duty. It's not my duty to lie for anybody. It's not my duty to keep, it's not my problem. Like, I'm not going to lie for anyone. It's not my job, dude. Also, it's not my job to keep up with who's supposed to lie for who or who's supposed to. I didn't get the memo. Nobody sent me a memo and said, hey, Elise, don't say anything if she asks you. What do I have to lie about, dude? I'm not doing that. It's not my job, dude. It had nothing to do with me. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, sorry. Do you know who needs to grow up, Beth? People who take their time out of a day to harass, demean, slander, call, text message a single mother of 4 children all day and night. No, he did not. He called me later on while I was out to dinner after the party at a restaurant with people and said, "What did you say on Monday?" Because then they were in a fight. Then a couple days later, something about the pictures he found out, and he just lost his ever-loving mind right there. Tried talking to him like, "Hey, what's your problem?" But a temper tantrum ensued. So yeah. Like when I was leaving the show that night, he had yelled over like, "Hey, I'm going to come on your show." Literally that night. It wasn't until the pictures that Deanna took of Lindsay just walking around the party and that she had sent to Lauren that made everything snap. That I was accused of taking those pictures. I had no knowledge of those pictures. I have no idea. I had to figure out who it was. Like, and then of course, Deanna admitted that she took those pictures, but she also says that she told Aiden. Well, why is he still saying I did then as of a few days ago? I don't know. Why would I take pictures of someone and send them to someone else? Why would I do that? A, that would hurt someone. That would hurt their feelings. I would never want to do that. And B, like, it's nothing to do with me. Like, why would I take pictures of Lindsay and send them to Lauren? Like, why would I do that? That would hurt Lauren. It would hurt Lindsay. Like, why would I do that? Like, why? It doesn't make any logical sense. Like, there's no reason, right? Like, there's literally no reason. So yeah, that's what happened. I didn't lie. And then, two people who know, the very 2 people who knew I had nothing to do with those pictures stayed quiet and said nothing. You're not good people. I'm sorry. If you're going to allow someone else to be blamed for the shit you did and you say nothing, you're not good people in my book. You're not. Like, can't sit there and say nothing. Right? Like, so I wasn't going to play the whole temper tantrum game. You want to have a temper tantrum? Go ahead, dude. We're grown adults. No need for temper tantrums. You go your way, I'll go mine. But if you want to sit there and just spew lies out of your face, and you can do that with a straight face, how much more are you lying about, dude? Well, the answer to that became a lot. A whole fucking lot. A whole lot. When I got pneumonia and I was sick for almost 8 weeks, it was around 6-ish weeks. And then obviously the last 2 weeks were sort of just like getting better, but I was having like really bad coughing fits. Like I could never do a live stream because literally, you guys, it was like I'd say like a sentence and then I would be coughing for like 30 seconds to a minute. Like it was bad coughing fits. Could feel it in my chest, like bruised ribs from coughing so hard. Like I was sick. And during that time, there was a lot of information that came out on this case, on the Karen Reed case, that I did not have previously. And also, there was a lot of information that came out about him and the shit that he had done to other people that was almost the exact same thing he had done to me. So hold on a second. We have numerous people that he has lied about. Straight face lies. And then he's doing it right now to me because I didn't lie for him. Because he got caught lying to other people. What? So what else were you lying about? And like I said, there was a lot of information that came in that time. A lot of evidence that came in that time. And I'm looking at it all and I'm going, holy shit. Holy shit. Holy shit, I was wrong. I was wrong. And this case is not an innocent person. This case is going to take 6 weeks, but every single day of it, I'm assuming you're going to hear something you didn't hear before and that you didn't know before. Yeah. Well, Katie, it was more than just them. So that's the, that's the problem. Like, that's the problem. It wasn't just them too. you know? That's the problem, right? How are you going to get mad at me? I'm not the one lying to numerous women. I'm just not lying for you. It's not my job. Like, it's not my job. It's really not my job. Like, I mean, a lot of people did, right? A lot of people did. And that saddens me because there are a lot of people, and I want to make this very clear. I still talk to people. I talk to people on both sides of this case. Like, I am friends with people on both sides of this. Both sides. Even some people that like butt heads with each other on sides, I am friends with. So you can be friends with people and not agree with their opinion of something. It doesn't boil down to defaming and lying and slandering and making shit up, accusing people of shit they didn't do. Like, all of it. Like, oh, no worries, Katie. Most people don't. Most people don't. Yes, Kara. Exactly. Exactly. I do too. And I love you because you're brave and amazing and kind and funny. And no one, and I mean no one, should be threatened into silence. If you feel the need to threaten people into silence, you know you're doing something wrong. If you feel the need to say, look what I do, I'm going to post your shit all over the internet, I can destroy your life. Do you know who I am? When you say statements like that and you feel the need to threaten people into silence, wake up. You're the problem. You're clearly the one who has an issue. Who the fuck feels the need to threaten people into silence if you're so damn innocent? Innocent people don't need to threaten people into silence. They don't. They just don't. I appreciate that, but I'm just doing what any normal person should do. Any normal person should do. If you're a normal human, I don't think you should be threatening people into silence. It's not a normal thing to do. I mean, when did that become a normal thing to do? I'm going to threaten you because if you open your mouth, I know I'm screwed. So I'm just going to threaten you. I'm scary. I'm going to put everything about you on the internet. Good. You do that. You do that. Let me do it for you. Ready? I used to be a drug addict. I was a stripper for 10 years. What else you want here? None of those things ever hidden in my life. I made it through the other side and went from someone who had been through a lot of trauma, and I mean a lot of abuse from childhood all the way up until adulthood. And I had a lot of trauma. I was a broken person way back when. Broken, very broken. I took that into being someone who was sitting in a jail cell to someone who worked at a jail, right? Like I went through the other side. I don't look in my past because there's nothing there for me, right? Like, you get through this kind of shit and you become a better person for it. That's what you do. Every day you try to be a better person than you were the day before, right? But what I'm not going to stand for is people being threatened and harassed into silence or into not supporting someone they want to support. Because the person doing the threatening and harassing has plenty to hide. If you feel the need to threaten and harass people and threaten them into silence, you're the one doing something wrong. What are you hiding? What's the problem? Why can't you just leave these people alone? Why do you need to threaten them or harass them? If there's nothing to hide, which we know is false, obviously we know there's plenty that you're hiding, but if there was nothing to hide, why? Why threaten people like this? For what reason? Kara is an amazing person. Lindsay is an amazing person. If you don't know them, it's your loss. They're both amazing friends. Kara is an amazing person in general. She's smart. She's funny. She has her own house. She's doing her thing. She's a good friend. And the same goes for Lindsay. She's an amazing mother. It's all she worries about is her kids 24/7. Just those kids. That's it. She makes decisions based on what's best for her children. She takes them places. She does things with them. She helps them do their homework. I help them do their homework. Like, it's what you do for the people you care about, right? Like, you're there for them. Like, but if you feel the need to incessantly say someone's name and incessantly incite a mob of online viewership, there's something wrong with you, not something wrong with them. Do you see them going online and just saying whatever? I mean, because if they just got online and said the truth, like, that would be damning enough. Yet they're allowing the process, the legal process, to play out while you slander, defame, threaten. Like, come on, dude. I mean, that's a little bit ridiculous. It's a little bit absurd. I mean, wake up, dude. Time to drink some coffee and wake up and use your own brain. This case has brought out a lot of evil in a lot of people. And I really hope that a lot of people take a good look in the mirror and say, holy shit, what did I become? How did I just believe all this? I didn't do my due diligence. I just believed it. And I decided then to in turn come out of pocket and harass people because of it. I'm sorry, but I'm not wasting my time harassing people I don't like. If I don't like you, that's cool. We don't have to like each other. You go your way, I'll go mine. Like, we're grown adults, no? Like, when did it become okay to be bullies? Like kindergartners or middle schoolers? Like, let's just harass each other into oblivion. Let's write fake reviews on people's work websites. Like, at what point do you say, hold on a second, that's probably not right? That's probably a shitty thing to do, considering I really don't know the truth because I wasn't there, or I haven't seen the evidence, or I don't know these people in real life. I promise you, one of these two people wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire. The other person would give you a place to sleep if you had nowhere to go. So, you know. I agree. Anybody with a brain or anybody with any sort of remorse. I mean, I get it. People don't agree. You don't have to agree. That's cool. We don't have to agree, right? Like, we don't have to agree on this case. But can we agree to disagree? Can we agree to be grown-ass adults and not children? Can we agree that inciting a mob of people is a little crazy? Like, can we agree to that? Like, can we agree to that kind of behavior as asinine? And can we agree that the only reason you would need to go on Twitter and release documents or release a story about a girl you've never met who's a single mother of 4 children just trying to navigate through this legal shit and get on with her life is to harass, demean, embarrass? She's been through trials and tribulations and made it out the other side, just like I have. Who are you to think that you get to decide that that's bad, or she's bad because of the things she's been through? Or for you to act like she's still doing said bad things, which is abundant, just false, all around false. I'll tell you who you are. You're no one to do that. Just like no one is to tell it about you. If you used to be an alcoholic, if you used to be an addict, if you used to be a shopping addict, some people are just shopping addicts. Like, who am I to judge you for your shopping addiction? You go right ahead. That's not my business, right? But what you're not going to do is call people junkies and alcoholics when neither one of those things are happening. She's been sober for years. I've been sober over a decade. I drink occasionally, rarely, really, but occasionally. I don't need to be sober from alcohol because I barely drink, right? Like, I was addicted to drugs, to opiates specifically. I'm not addicted, nor have I ever had a problem with alcohol. Alcoholics drink every day. You know, they go out for days. It affects their life. I don't even have alcohol in my fridge. I probably drink like 10 times a year total, if I had to guess. Like, when I'm on, you know, a vacation without my children, which is like a 3-day long camping trip I take every year. And like, maybe for like the Super Bowl or an adult birthday party or a night out, like a date night. Like, it's literally it. So I don't think you have a right to judge anyone else when you have never lived their shoes and you actually have no idea what the hell's going on. Like, I love that one. I don't know how any of you could call Kara fat. She's literally not, I don't know where you call her. Like, where's the fat in her? in her brain because she's smart. Like, where? Says who, though, Beth? Says you? I'm a grown adult over the age of 21. If I want to have a drink every once in a while, I have every right to have that drink. So because you said that I can't have a drink because I used to be addicted to opiates, strictly opiates, that means I shouldn't, and I'm an alcoholic if I do. Do you know how ridiculous that sounds? That's absurd. An alcoholic drinks every day. An alcoholic, it affects their life. If you're drinking 10 times a year, newsflash, you're not an alcoholic. Well, guess what? I don't subscribe to Narcotics Anonymous, nor have I ever, because I am not a follower and it reads like a cult. They also say you're not supposed to have a relationship within the first year of sobriety, but that's nowhere in their book. They just made that one up. So I don't subscribe to AA or NA. They don't get to tell me whether I can have a drink or not. If I was an alcoholic, then yes. Then you don't drink because you can't control yourself, right? Like same thing with drugs. But if I used to be a drug addict and I've been sober as long as I have, and I drink occasionally or rarely, where I have like a beer or two and then I'm done, or a drink or two and then I'm done, like everybody else is still drinking and I'm like, no, I get a good buzz, I'm done. That in no way makes anyone an alcoholic. Like you want to subscribe to that, you can choose to believe that on your own, but that is not what I subscribe to or anyone else subscribes to. You choose to say that no one in recovery of drugs can ever drink a drink. Like that's what you believe. That's what you subscribe to when you go to AA and NA. I don't subscribe to that bullshit. Nor will I ever. Note my objection. She's been sober for quite a long time from drugs. Do you know what she does? She has a drink once in a while and she smokes marijuana. Does that magically make her not sober from the drugs that she was doing that was affecting her life? No, it does not. No, it does not. She enjoys a drink every once in a while and she enjoys to smoke weed. Good for her. And I give that woman a high five. She's highly intelligent. Highly intelligent. She knows what the hell she's talking about. And I suggest you go watch her if you want to learn a little. Like, you wanted to choose to subscribe to NA and NA. That's your thing. You do that. I don't subscribe to that. Never have, never will. You won't see me at a meeting. You would have never seen me at a meeting unless it was an early recovery when they forced you to. Other than that, you'll never see me in an AA or an NA meeting. I got sober on my own. I don't need NA or AA to keep me there. I don't subscribe to half their bullshit. I'm sorry, I don't. It reads like a cult and I'm not interested. So I don't know, like you can decide that for yourself, but you don't get to decide that for other people. You don't get to decide that someone who used to be a drug addict, who's been sober as long as me or Lindsay have been, that we don't get to have a drink once in a while. You don't get to decide. I do as an adult. Now, if I was an alcoholic, yeah, I'd expect people to call me out on it. But all my friends probably see me drink, like I said, maybe 10 times a year, maybe less. Some years, 3. So you don't get to decide for me what I'm going to do. I get to decide. Like, it's not that I have all the answers, it's that I have truth. See, there's this thing called truth, right? So like truth doesn't lie, right? Like you don't have to change it because it's there and it's the truth. Like, like, come on. I don't need to have all the answers. But what you're not going to do is come on here and say someone who used to be a drug addict is never allowed to have a drink. Because I don't believe that. I've been sober from drugs going on 16 years, and I have a drink every once in a while. I have that right as someone over the age of 21 in the United States of America. If I was an alcoholic, I would drink every single day and it would affect my life. Not an alcoholic. I was a drug addict. There's a difference. Ew, I don't know how you drink those. Can't drink Corona. I don't like it. Might be Spanish, but I don't like Corona. Isn't that a mind blower? Like, I don't even drink soda. I drink water. Propel, to be exact. I don't even drink soda. Like, no, we're all just so unhealthy, right? Like, I'm sort of just done with the conjecture. I'm sort of just done with the judgment. The judgment put on Kara, the judgment put on Lindsay. You've never met these people. You don't know these people. But these people have a story to tell. And boy, is it a fucking doozy. Boy, is it a doozy. So maybe, just maybe, you should listen. Maybe, just maybe, you might learn a pattern of behavior. Yeah, I got that too. I got my coffee. My funny bone. If you could give it to me on tap, I would totally take it. Funny bone on tap for me. Absolutely. I haven't checked for donations. I have not looked. I'm not reading them aloud today. Any of them will be anonymous. And there's 2 current needs, one for Lindsay's defense and one for a DV victim that most of us know, including my mod, that has an immediate need right now and help right now. Yeah, see, not everybody subscribes to doing meetings or AA or NA, but the information is on the bottom of the screen. It scrolls across the bottom of the screen. If you want to help either one of those 2 things, because that's what we decided before I did this live stream. Everybody talked about it, and there are 2 people that need help right now, 2 people that are very near and dear to us, and we want to help. So that's the way we're going to help. Yeah, so not everybody does meetings. I mean, that's the thing. Like, you choose to do AA or NA, like that's your belief and you have that right, but you don't have a right to choose that for someone else. You don't have a right to say AA or NA is the only way. Obviously, it's not. Clearly, it's not the only way, as many of us have gotten sober without it. Like, see? Exactly. Perfect example. And I know plenty of people like this that had opiate addiction problems, just like myself, over 15 years ago, and never had a drinking problem. It wasn't the drinking that was the problem. Like they didn't, I mean, I barely drank, like I barely drank even back then. And I worked in a bar. Like most nights I wouldn't even drink. I might've drank like once in a blue moon when somebody I knew came in, like, and I worked in a bar. Like if I was going to be an alcoholic, I would have done it then when I was working in a bar. Right? Like, if you choose to have one, you choose to have one. Like, if you can't control yourself, that's when it becomes the point where you're an alcoholic. But all the like everybody being hypocrites, like you can say like this person is bad because they have a record. Like I had my record sealed like 8 years ago. There's like a few little, like anything related to, like there's a few little random things that are on there that have yet to be seen, but I've never been convicted of a crime a day in my life. Everything on my record has been dismissed. I've never been convicted of a crime. Therefore, you can't call somebody who's never been convicted of a crime a criminal and a bad person. Like it's just not the way it works, dude. Right? Like that's what the justice system is for, to decide. Just like right now for Karen Reed. So do we get to call Karen forever a criminal because it was on her record? Also, I've never been indicted for anything. So there's that. But does that pull weight? No, an indictment means nothing if the person is not found guilty, right? Like, at least that's what the judge told us in Karen Reed's case. Should we just say, like, fuck it? Like, come on, dude. If you're going to be indicted on numerous charges and have numerous charges on your record currently, but then you have the audacity to go tell the world that someone else has shit on their record that they weren't convicted of, and they're a criminal and they're a bad person, like, take that mirror and flash it back on yourself. Take it, flash it back on yourself. That's what you're literally being a hypocrite. You're saying that yours don't matter, but someone else's does. That you're not a bad person, but those people are. What? Come again? Say it again? Like, what? Well, you know. And I don't judge her. I don't judge her. If she wants to have a couple drinks, yeah, hey, go for it. Like, that's not my business. What is my business is when I get accused of doing something that she did and she doesn't take responsibility for it. I would have never allowed somebody to be blamed for something I did. I would have never. Like, it's just insane to me where the moral compass is here. Like, where is your moral compass? Did you take a good look today and say, you know what, I'm going to be a better person today than I was yesterday? I'm not going to harass people on behalf of someone on the internet. I'm going to have my opinion. I might even type my opinion, but I'm not going to be nasty to people. I'm not going to call them names. I'm not going to, all this stuff is so childish. It's like, do you think you saying mean words to me like, I'm going to get on the internet and I'm going to say mean words and I have so much power with my mean words. Like, ooh, you're so scary. Say mean things. Oh no, not that. But that's the only way these people have to control the narrative and control their people, is to type bad things and say bad things about someone until everyone else repeats it like a parrot. and believes it until they start thinking that it's automatically true because 50 people said it. Well, newsflash, it started with one person. Like, for instance, there was a text message shown the other night that was called a smoking gun. Smoking gun, that's what it was called, right? Well, I'm here to inform you that the next message that came in from that message said, not that it's a game or anything, because what I'm saying is true compared to his lying. Did he show you that one? I bet you he didn't. But I have it. See how that works? I'm only going to show you one part of it that makes it sound like I'm right. But I'm not going to show you the rest of the message that shows you the entire context of it. Like, and you don't think that's pushing a narrative or lying to people? Of course it is. Of course it is. It's calculated and on purpose. Show the whole thing. Don't show pieces. Don't omit your own part in it. Show it all. Show it all. If you're so innocent, show it all. Show all of your part in it. I don't know how they could make fun of your clothes because you dress very nicely. And you always look adorable. Like, and also FYI, guys, it's probably not smart to make fun of a person that knows how to shoot. Like, just FYI. You know, I used to go to the range all the time. Do you go to New Hampshire, Kara? My friend Tina loves going to the range. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Let's not act like these people are pillars of society either. Like, come on. Like, I'm a pillar of society, but I sit here saying mean things about people online all the time and expecting my mob to then in turn attack these people, knowing what they'll do. I never ask them to stop. I never tell them that it's not cool and it's childish, only when it benefits me, not when they're hurting other people, because I just sit and I point and I laugh behind a screen that I sit behind every day, all day, 24/7. You did stick out like a sore thumb. I know we should go. That's actually a good idea. We should go soon. We should. That'll be fun. That would be so much fun. I haven't been in a long time. Yep. Yeah, we should go. Yeah, I know she does stick out like a sore thumb too, because you're so well dressed. Like, you know, you got your shit together. Like, it is such a good idea. We should go. I think we would all have a blast. I freaking love that dress in that picture. I don't know where you bought it, but like every time I see that picture, I'm like, I love that dress. I love it so much. Right? That would be a blast. We had a blast at lunch the other day. The amount of laughs. I swear to God. I wish you were there, Kara, because my gut was busting. Yes, we totally can plan that. Absolutely 100% can plan it. We'll figure it out when I get off live stream. I'm going to do another one later on tonight, but I need to get a few things off my chest. I need to say a couple of things, but I think around, try to do like 6:30-ish if I can. My minion, when she gets home, I need to make sure she does her homework and stuff and gets ready for bed. But we have dinner before that, so Dad's got softball today, so it's going to be probably, I'm thinking 6:30, maybe a little later. It depends. I'll obviously let you guys know, but thank you, Macy's. I am in Massachusetts, yes. I save my expensive outfits for work. My minion. Yes, that's what I call her, my little minion. A little minion. She's my little. I want to keep her little as long as possible. My other two are big and don't need me anymore because they're teens and adults. Like, need mommy. No, they always need mommy. Even my oldest always needs mommy. You need mommy until the day you die. You need your parents forever. Whether they're over 18 or not, your children will always need you. My children still call me mommy. Okay? Even the oldest, who will be 20 this year. Mommy, mama. So that's what she does. I'm like, gosh, what do you need now, kid? If they don't stop cutting these trees down, I'm going to lose my mind. They've been cutting them down for like 3 days, and now I had to shut the slider, so it's making it really hot in my house because they haven't shut the heat off yet to the building. I can't control it. It has to be shut off to the whole thing because it's included in your rent. And it gets really hot in here. And since they've been cutting it down, all the bees and all the gnats, because we're the woods is right here next to us. Like they're just coming in through my slider door because like the regular screen door is broken. They have to get me a new screen. So when I open it, it's just like open. So here they come, and I'm like, oh, I'm tired of this, man. Like the bees, especially. There's hornets, bees. Like I don't know if my little one is allergic. She's never been stung, so I'm gonna need new screen to screen in the porch on the one side that it needs to be fixed, because that's crazy. It's crazy. I guess it won't see you guys tomorrow though, because there's nothing happening tomorrow. I will see you guys Thursday for a half day on the case, and Friday for a full day on the case. But I thought it was going to be Monday. As far as I knew, it was going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, full days, and then Tuesday and Thursday half days. So I'm wondering why there's nothing tomorrow. It seems a little strange, but I don't know. Maybe they had something scheduled just in this first week that was important. I don't know. I'm not sure. But I think it was a lot of what we saw today. Is a lot of just, and I called this the other day on Heels in the Air show yesterday. Like you're going to see a lot of just eating away at like the investigation, and like no investigation is perfect. I'm not saying like no one over here is saying like, oh, the investigation was absolutely 100% perfect. Like nobody's saying that. Like were some things like things that they probably should have done, but we're also talking about a very small town here. Canton doesn't have the ability like the state police to have, all the crime lab stuff they needed. Like, but they had to collect some evidence or something they thought was evidence. So they put them in cuffs. Like, to be fair, the bag isn't the problem, because oftentimes evidence is collected and put in paper bags like that all over the country. My problem was more like the cup not being like clean or sanitary. But even so, like, it's still going to tell you whose blood it is, bottom line. Like, it's still going to come back to whoever's blood it is, and they felt it imminent to get that, evidence right away, and they couldn't wait for the CERT team. The snow was coming down. If it would have been covered up or seeped into the ground, they wouldn't have been able to get it. And a lot of people ask, like, where's all the blood? Well, if you do a little research, right? A little research into what could have happened there. Well, A, the pictures show there was an immense amount of blood, and B, John's clothes were absolutely covered in blood, like sopped. But it's also all over the snow, and then it seeped into the ground. So whether the ground is cold or even you get frozen or not frozen, like it's not like a table where it will just, slide off. It seeps in. The ground still is like a sponge. Things are going to go in. When it rains, where does the rain go? Like, yeah, when it gets wet enough, it starts to make puddles, right? Like even in grass. But where does it go when it starts raining? Into the ground. And even if it doesn't stop raining, you may not see any puddles in the grass. You might see some because there's divots or holes in the ground, like previous. But in a flat grass area, you're not just going to see puddles everywhere, right? The water goes into the ground. The same applies here with the blood. Like, yeah, cold enough, some of it's going to coagulate. And that means sort of like go from a liquid almost to like a solid, where it turns into almost like blood clots, pieces of blood clots. I think one of the EMTs was talking about that when I first signed on live. But like that, you're going to see some of that. But they collected what they think they needed at the time before the CERT team could get there, right? Like, you got to do what you got to do. And in that moment, you had to improvise. They improvised. Police stations all over the country have to improvise on certain things all the time. It sounds like at the scene, Karen had said to multiple people, I hit him. So now at that point, it goes from, we don't know what happened to this guy, to possibly his girlfriend hit him. And so now we need to figure out if this is a criminal investigation or not, because she's saying she hit him. So now we got to go into like criminal investigation mode. Like this whole thing about like tape, they did put tape around, it kept blowing off, right? Because of the storm. So it's like, you can't expect things that don't, like they tried some of these things, right? Like they had to dig to get some of the evidence. They had shovels out. Like they literally had to dig. And there are pictures of that. You'll see them, in the trial, but like there are pictures of them digging to find any evidence that may have gotten covered over by the snow. So like, there's a lot of different things that like people have just been told and they have just believed this entire time. And the evidence will show something different. you're going to see a lot of the Commonwealth sort of just validating what the witnesses saw and having them tell their story. And then in the defense, you're going to see the defense come in and try to poke holes in what they remember, and that their memories are all faulty, and that they couldn't quite remember this or this or this. So that means they didn't remember anything, which obviously is ridiculous and no jury's going to buy. But you're going to see them try to poke holes in their memories and say, well, how many times you talked about this case? Many? Oh, well, since you talked about it many, many times, don't you think like talking about it so many times, like maybe somebody suggested something and now that's what you remember? Like, no, people are going to remember what they remember. And they're going to tell you what they remember, right? Like, I'm not saying there's never a false, witness. Of course there has been, but if you have 10 people that are all telling the same story, is it really likely that that's not what happened? No, probably not, right? Like, now you got to remember, this isn't about what I think or what you think, right? Like, it's about what the jury thinks. So what I think is irrelevant. What you think is irrelevant. It's about what is the jury going to buy and what is the jury not going to buy. So what you have to do is imagine yourself sitting on a jury. Take all the biases out of your head. If you think Karen's guilty, take it out of your head. If you think Karen's innocent, take that out of your head. Act like you never met the woman a day in your life. Act like you have no idea who this is. You don't know this case. And someone gets on the stand. Multiple people testify to the fact that she said, I hit him. For me as a juror, that would sound pretty bad, right? And in turn, if the defense had a witness that said, I saw John go in the house, I was with John in the house, like then I'd be like, all right, hold on, wait a second. The Commonwealth said he didn't go in the house, but the defense has got a witness that says they were in the house. So like that would be bad, right? Like, I don't know of any such witness. I'm just using it as like an example. Like, as a juror, you have to weigh what these jurors are thinking and what you would think if you were an everyday person sitting on this jury. Like, it's pretty damning if multiple people are going to tell the same story, especially if they can remember exactly what was said. Like, because certain things are going to stick out in your mind. If someone's screaming and yelling, it's traumatic. You're going to remember it. Like, your trauma response sort of stamps it into your head. Like, boop, that's what happened, right? Like, and I believe that a lot of these people, like the first responders and stuff, like when they got there, if someone's running around screaming, I hit him, like, that's not going to be something you're going to forget pretty easily. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just not. And everybody was read to believe, was made to believe there was one witness. There was only one witness that heard that, and it was an EMT that was friend with the Alberts. But now we know that's not true, right? That's not true. It's not true at all. Like, there was multiple people that heard it. It wasn't just one person that knew the Alberts or McCabe's. It was numerous people at the scene, right? Like, so it's like these little lies that like turn into these things where people are like, she's innocent, she's guilty. Like, follow the freaking evidence. Like, it's not rocket science. Sit in as you were a juror, right? And start admitting to yourself what would be bad on either side. Like, I would say I definitely don't think John went in the house. I think it's humanly impossible. Looking at the evidence, if you look, there would have been only a 3-second window for John to have been in that house, gotten beaten, and thrown outside. Could you go into a house, get beaten, and be thrown outside within a 3-second window? Not humanly possible. John's data only flies over the house for a 3-second period. The going up and down stairs, we now know, right? Now we know that they weren't even arrived at Fairview yet. They had not even arrived, so it couldn't be possible that he was walking up and down steps in the house because their phone data shows that they had not even arrived there yet. So it can't be that he was going up and down stairs inside Fairview Road. So unless he was going up and down stairs somewhere with Karen beforehand, couldn't have been Fairview because he didn't get there yet. So at what point do you say this theory has holes? It doesn't make sense, right? You can't go into a house, be beaten, and thrown out a lawn in 3 seconds. It would take longer than that to walk through the front door. So it's like the times don't match up to what the data, the forensic data says. And they don't just have John's data, they have Karen's data, they have all the other people in the house. So it's like, you kind of have to admit when like you thought one thing and here comes the evidence showing a completely another thing. Like, I have no problem admitting that I believed a lot of things in the beginning, but we had that very small amount of evidence. And also we had what certain people claimed to be true that we now know was completely false the whole time. I mean, it's still talking about a shoe that they found, a shoe that's in the documents. There's literally a map to where John's shoe was found, which, by the way, is consistent with being hit by a vehicle, a shoe flying off. Like, yep. Yeah, exactly. It was texting Malo probably to be like, hey, where the hell are you? Like, I saw you outside. Like, hello, where are you? Where'd you go? Like, you know? So it's like, you got to go back and look at like the times. And what matches up to the forensic data, like versus like the timeline of time of what time he got there, what time he could have possibly been in the house. You know what I'm saying? You can't be in a house for only 3 seconds and get beat up in 3 seconds. The data shows he only went over that house for a total of 3 seconds. I actually did. I've never met the guy, so I can't say whether he's a good cop or a bad cop or anything like that. I've never met the guy. I don't. I know through other people about him, but I have heard the exact same thing, that he is a good cop and that they're not even questioning, anything like that. What they're questioning is like statements he maybe shouldn't have made, like in private, like things he might have, should have not have said. Like, that's not, it doesn't change the evidence or the data. He can't change the phone data, right? Like, he can't change the phone data to make it say John was in the house when he wasn't, like, or vice versa. So it's like, if it's not possible to get beat up and thrown out of lawn in 3 seconds, Proctor can't change that data, right? Like, so it's like nothing, like you can put him under an investigation, but like, what does that really do? Nothing. It does nothing. He's still doing cases, which tells you like they're not really concerned. He's not that concerned. Like, if they were concerned about anything that would be irrelevant in a case or anything that would affect a case, he would not be currently working. I promise you that. Especially not currently working cases. He wouldn't currently be doing anything. He'd be on administrative paid leave. Like, that's what he would be on. Like, I have heard a lot of people say that Yuri is hot or cute. Not my cup of tea, but I have heard that from a lot of people. The Walsh case will be another interesting one to watch. I think I really wish Adam Montgomery would have like shown up to his damn trial or shown up to any of his court dates, like, because that case, he needs to go to prison for the rest of his life, because clearly what he did was heinous. I don't know how anybody could hurt a child ever. You have to be a very sick individual to want to hurt children. Like, yeah, I've actually heard he was a pretty cool guy too. Like, I don't know, once again, I've never met the guy. I've never talked to the guy. But what I will say though is like, what the fuck, Telly? Like, you don't look at shit before you release a bunch of shit. Like, I mean, we're talking 15 years of someone's phone, like their children's, bath pictures and all sorts of stuff that like no one should be looking at. Like, I mean, that's just sick. Like, sick behavior. Like, if you feel the need to go through like all that stuff, like, and then be like, oh, I'm going to find anything embarrassing to just slander and defame someone because I think that if people just get riled up enough, they'll harass them enough that maybe that I can quiet them into silence, or I can harass them enough that they'll just say, oh yeah, I'm a conspiracyist. It's a conspiracy theorist. It's all a conspiracy and you win. Like, that's not going to happen. So like his wish and dream for that, like, not going to happen, dude. Like, the embarrassing stuff, nobody, like, why would you feel the need to put out anything embarrassing about anyone? Like, especially children. Like, there's got to be something seriously wrong with your brain. Like, like, it is sick. It's a sick behavior. It's real sick behavior if you think it's okay to like go through and go, oh, I'm going to find anything embarrassing just to make my point. Like, what? Like, time to grow up, dude. Also, time to tell the truth. Time to tell the truth about what happened. Like, okay, love you. Talk to you later. It is absolutely 100% illegal to send copies of actually to anyone. Never mind sending illegally sending pictures of the kids like to anyone at all. You're disseminating like things that are illegal, especially things like that. People's, you know, if there's social security cards, birth certificates, any of that stuff, like, no, bro, no. I mean, you're getting yourself into trouble. I suggest you just stop, dude. Like, I mean, here's the funny thing is everybody's like, it's a conspiracy. Everybody's out to get him. And it's like, no, it's his own actions. If he just stopped and left her alone, he would be fine. Like, it's not rocket science, dude. Like, he creates his own issues. He creates them. Like, if he's not creating evidence, he's creating that. Like, I thought, like, receipts, no, they're not receipts. What they are is doctored or specific things taken out of context. Things only wants you to see. Doesn't want you to see the rest of it because the rest of it would prove that what he just said was a lie. So why would he show you the rest of it? Right? He's not going to. But I have copies of the rest of it. So if he doesn't want to show it to you, I will. Like, I mean, that's what it boils down to. If he wants to show you bits and pieces, I'll show the entire thing. And then we can combat that way. Like, a little crazy. Like, this is the problem. If you're going to show something, show all of the context. Don't show a little tiny part to go with your narrative that you want to tell the world. Show all of it. Show everything. Why not show everything? What's the problem? If it's what you say it is, then showing the rest of it wouldn't be a problem, right? I have copies, so. I mean, well, let's just tell the truth here. I'm just saying, like, I'm done with this, like, lying and this narrative and this scheming. Like, I mean, what are we, 5? What are you, kindergartner, getting ready to, like, steal your friend's lunch? Like, you know, shove someone in a locker? Because that's what we're acting like. Like, you're a bully at school who's going to shove people in lockers and take their lunch. Like, do you need to, like, go back? Like, what's that movie that Adam Sandler goes back to school? Billy Madison. Like Billy Madison, you need to go back to school like Billy Madison, do all the grades all over again. So like maybe you can be accepted into the cool kid club. So like maybe as an adult, you can feel like a normal human being and not inadequate. Because I don't know anyone else that acts like that unless you're a narcissist or you have a lot of insecurity. Like a lot of insecurity. You have to be completely insecure with yourself to continuously pick other people apart. That's something that's within you. It's within you if you feel the need to do that to other people. It's like Psych 101. Anybody taking a psych class should know this. Like, I mean, come on. It's time to wake up. Use your own brain and maybe, just maybe, wait to see the actual real evidence and not just pieces and bits and spin and lies and outright false, crazy stories that never happened. Like, well, that's the thing. It's like I said, it's beyond me too, but it did. So, it's something in you. If you feel the need to belittle and shame and smear other people, there's something wrong inside here and here. It's not them, it's you. Like, oh, we know that. We already know that. Like, we know that's what he does. It's sad, but that's, you know, I know I was one of those women once. I'm a survivor of domestic violence from over 20 years ago. The police reports are horrific, right? Like, horrific. But I'm a survivor, right? Like, I made it through. But what I don't appreciate is anybody acting like abuse is only like physical and that you need to be beat up like me multiple times or even beat up to begin with. Like, that's not a thing. Like, yeah, except that's not what happened, Kevin. Seeking Jonos during a fundraiser that he got paid thousands of dollars behind everybody's back and never told anyone about. It's quite hypocritical. Also, if I'm working an event that I paid to be at, I'm pretty sure that if someone wants to send a donation my way, that would be my business and not his, right? Considering that I then took that money and donated it to both him and Karen at the same time. I don't want to hear about somebody being hypocritical when you're taking thousands of dollars in a check that you don't tell anyone about, that you claim that you went there to donate your time. So that shit don't jive with me. Like, that don't jive with me. So it's like, this is my problem. You people don't know what you're talking about, right? Like, Someone told you something and you think that's why. It had nothing to do with donos or merch. Had nothing to do with any of that. That's the excuse that was used, but it had nothing to do with any of that. You might want to skip back a little. Like, I know I'm on a tirade right now. I can't help myself. But again, I am going to do a live stream later, but right now, I'm not reading donos out loud. I'm not going to do that because people want to remain anonymous and I don't fucking blame them. So, you know, if anybody feels the need, we are going to raise money for Lindsay's Defense Fund and a DV victim that some of you know that have an immediate need right now. And that's where that money will go. So the stuff is scrolling at the bottom if you feel the need. Yeah, I'm not going to readdress it. I already did it. Like, I just explained all this and it had nothing to do with that changing my, like, when you realize someone can sit there and bullface lie and continuously lie and lie with a straight face, you start to wonder what else they lied about, right? And then you go back and you look. And then when you get a dump of evidence the way I did when I was sick with pneumonia for 6 or so weeks, about 6 to 8, because I took the extra 2 weeks to sort of recoup. And I'm looking at this shit. I'm like, holy shit. Holy shit. You might want to back up a little for it to be explained to you, is all I'm saying. Like, it needs to be back. You got to back up because I'm not going to do it twice. But that's not, you know, how we do stuff. Like, I don't just change my mind because the whole thought of like someone would change their mind just because they don't like someone. Like, that's not how, I don't just go, oh, I am changing my mind about this because I don't like someone. Like, no, you follow evidence. Even if I hated you, right? That doesn't change my mind about a case because I don't like you. What would change my mind is me coming to the realization that you're just a bold-faced liar who likes to spin things and take tiny things and make them giant things and lie a lot. And then when a bunch of evidence comes and smacks me in the face right after that, then I start taking things and comparing and saying, oh my God, that was a lie. Holy shit. They must have known about this if I now know about this. So wait the fuck a second. Like, and then you start to realize, holy crap. I was only told pieces of things or things I was led to believe were not true at all. Like the shoe that people keep talking about. Even him. Where's the shoe? The shoe is in the damn paperwork. They found the shoe. There's a damn map to where the shoe is. Or that Colin Albert somehow did this. Colin Albert wasn't even in the fucking house. So tell me how a 17-year-old kid who wasn't even in the house when Karen and John got there did this. Explain, please. Explain how John's data matching with other people's data shows that him and Karen didn't arrive until after these so-called stairs, which I got a dump of that information while I was sick. Tell me how it's possible somebody can get beat up and thrown outside within a 3-second period that shows John around the house with only 3 seconds. So the GPS backs itself up and it's in front of the house. And for 3 seconds, it hovers around the house. Like, so possible he could have been in that house within those 3 seconds. So explain how someone gets beat up and thrown out on the front lawn in 3 seconds. It's not humanly possible, right? Like, it's literally not humanly possible. Like, and Colin wasn't in the house, as the FBI well knows, right? So, you know, these are things that keep getting like said over and over and over that are false, outright false, bold-faced lies. And there's more. Sorry to burst your bubble, but there's more, right? Like, it's physically impossible for somebody to go in a house and get beat up within a 3-second period. It's just not possible. It didn't happen. Like, it's sad. It's sad, you know, like that this is where it's at. Like, I don't think everybody should be divided. And like I said, if you weren't here earlier, let me make it abundantly clear that I am friends with people on both sides of this case. You know, people who believe she's innocent, people who believe she's like both sides of this case. I am friends with people on both sides. I have relationships with people on both sides. You cannot agree on something and still be friends. It's a thing, you know. It's possible. It can actually happen. Like, Imagine that, huh? Imagine that you don't have to be a shitty person and just like call people names and smear them and spread false lies and rumors and harass and call and text single mothers of 4 children because you have nothing else to do. Like, you realize that you can actually like disagree with people and not be a shit human, right? It's actually plausible. It can actually happen. You can actually have some really good relationships with people. I'm an independent. I don't believe in half the stuff Democrats do. I don't believe in half the stuff the Republicans do, but I got friends on both sides. Guess what? We're still real close as friends. Why? Because just because we don't agree doesn't mean we need to be crazy hostile to each other. But what I'm not going to sit here and allow is people to speculate and defame and slander and falsify shit just to make one internet personality happy about a single mother of 4 children. It's childish. It's time to grow up. And it's crazy. It's we're adults, dude. We're not in kindergarten. We're grown adults. It's time people start acting like grown adults. Like, if she was your daughter, right? Your friend, your sister, would this behavior like be acceptable to you? A bunch of people who've never met her a day in their lives and no real life information about her. Just what they've been told by someone who's got a lot to hide. That's what we're doing. That's how we're doing stuff. Well, doesn't it seem a little crazy now? Seems a little cuckoo, right? It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make logical sense at all. I wish people would use their brains more, and I wish people would try to find the truth, try to find the patterns of behavior of certain individuals, and how it mathematically can't possibly be every person you've ever come in contact with is just a bad person. It's up to you guys to use your brains and decide for yourselves. But I suggest that you start using them to think for yourself. Not that difficult. Doesn't take rocket science to figure it out. But if you're only hearing from one side consistently and constantly, and you're not hearing from the other, someone's waiting for the justice system to do its job and someone isn't. Why is that? Nobody stops to think about that. No, not even a little. Anybody have any case related questions? Yeah. Yep. It's just a little crazy, right, Katie? Like, but if anybody has any case related questions to what we saw today in the case, I'd be happy to answer them, or what I think is going to happen the next day of trial, which is Thursday at this point, because the judge said there's nothing tomorrow, which I am still confused about, but whatever, that's what she said. And then I'll see you guys Thursday and Friday and later on tonight to do some breakdown of some of the back and forth that we heard today with the witnesses from the defense and the prosecution. Yes, that's exactly what it's called, Katie. It's called maturity. You just agree to disagree. It's that simple. We can agree to disagree, right? You don't have to like me. I don't have to like you, but we don't have to constantly do this. Or one person doesn't have to use a battering ram to just constantly try to break someone down. I mean, let's be mature here. Let's be grown adults here, right? Like, if one person is constantly trying to hurt another, you have to stop and think to yourself, why do you think that is? Why? And if your automatic answer was to prove your innocence, then you got a lot of growing up to do. Start looking at patterns of behavior. It's not hard. Like, but this whole attacking each other because you don't agree crap, like, y'all want to do that, you do that. But what I'm not going to stand for is the lies and the spin and the constant harassment to people. I'm not going to do it. You know, there's two reasons somebody would use the word proffer, right? Proffer doesn't just mean one thing. And also in the context of the feds, there are numerous things you can do when you quote unquote proffer. And one of them isn't just like, I made a deal, right? Like, I think people have that all fucked up. Like, there's numerous, like, people just automatically assume like, oh, we heard federal proffer, so he copped a deal. Wrong. Wrong. Sometimes in order, what your attorney will have you do is get a proffer so that when you tell, they want you to make sure the feds want to make sure that you're telling them everything that you know and that it's all the truth. So they want to make sure if you lie to them that you're going to be held account to that. So sometimes they say, here's a proffer. We're going to get your testimony, but we want to make sure you're not lying, right? If you're lying, we're going to get you on like perjury or whatever, right? Because a federal investigation is a federal investigation. What I can tell you is he doesn't have a deal, if that's what you're asking. Higgins didn't get some federal proffer deal, and he's not flipping and testifying that John was in the house or any of that crazy shit. So if that's what like you're thinking, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but that's not what's going to happen. This whole thing of he got a proffer, you have to remember a lot of the colorful language that the defense used. I remember a good one. The feds can't in good conscience let this go to trial. And then feds came out and said that's not what was said at all. The colorful language doesn't equal truth. It's just tactics of PR by good defense attorneys. I mean, they're doing their job, right? Like they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, like, but it doesn't make it true. And the judge has a couple times let them know that she's done with that sort of colorful language and spinning the truth by doing that. There is no deal. Higgins didn't take a deal. He didn't flip. He's not going to testify that John was in the house or that he saw John get beat up and thrown out on a lawn. He's going to testify to the same shit everyone else saw. So I don't know why people think that. It's not a thing. Like, I don't care about Biden. I don't care about Trump. I don't care about either one of them. That's got nothing to do with anything whatsoever, especially right now. I don't do politics here, nor do I give a shit about it right now. So I don't know where we're going with that. I don't care about either one of those clowns. So I vote for what's in my best interest and my family's best interest. And none of what's happening at all is in anyone's best interest. So politics is a joke right now. Just the whole fucking thing is a joke. The whole system itself is a joke, and the whole thing is a joke. It's that simple. But I don't do politics. We're not doing politics. We're doing a case. So there's no deal. Higgins didn't flip. He's not going to say John was in the house and got beat up. So you want to play this back when that happens, please be my guest on playing that clip. But that's not happening. So sorry to burst your bubble on that one. Anything else? Because I have a few things I need to do before later. All right, looks like there's nothing else. Fantastic. I will see you guys later on tonight. I gotta crack my neck, sorry. I'll see you guys later on tonight, and we'll go over some of the actual testimony that happened today, and some of the tactics that we're going to see going forward, and who the next witnesses I think are going to be and why. And I will see you guys then. Everybody have a fantastic rest of the day till I see you later.